Hello and blessings upon you in this, if you're in the United States, at least right now, icy, frigid, cold time. I know our friends in Canada are also not doing well from this right now. Hopefully, everyone is doing fine. It has been an interesting time period. We are today on the new moon, just after the winter solstice, and hopefully, everyone is getting ready for whatever you celebrate, as well as the new year, because my mind is really heading that way. My name is Charlie. I am a non-binary sci-fi fantasy writer, and I'm also a board member for the Creation Spirituality Communities. I am joined today on this wonderful stream by Megan McCarthy,
Hello.
Carrie Harditsky, I think I said it right this time, um, Glory Fink, and Kat Leo, and Tom Fink. And I think I'm having all the problems hitting buttons today. I don't. I feel like I should give the warning before we get started on things. StreamYard was a little weird. I'm sure you noticed that videos were starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping a little bit. And I don't know why. I don't know if I'm accidentally double clicking things or if they're having issues. But it's going to be an interesting day. So I'm here in southeast Missouri, and we are sitting at a current wind chill of -10.
Yikes.
How it is 10 degrees naturally. How is everybody doing for the snowpocalypse? Is everybody okay?
I'm doing fine.
Sound delay. I'm going to look up the wind chill.
Our pipes are frozen.
I'm
They're
looking up-
they're not rated for below 23 degrees here in South Mississippi. Yeah, it's less than ideal. Let's see.
Our poor heater is just struggling to keep it any semblance of warm, because this is a kind of cold that we usually don't have to worry about here.
I think right now it currently feels like it's 13 degrees Fahrenheit,
Oh man.
which is pretty amazing for a subtropical land.
Yeah.
And we're our roads are not for this kind of cold temperature. Our pipes are not. Like, I don't remember. It's been years since the last time it got down this cold.
Climate change is definitely a thing.
-3 feels like -28.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hello.
23 feels like 9, and your pipes are frozen. Oh, in North Texas.
Oh,
no. Just the sheer volume, like land mass that this current winter storm covered is just blowing my mind. How far south, all the way up to the north, and just wide it has been. Just
Unless you're in California.
Yeah, it's like
at all.
60 degrees right now, so I'm like not that cold. I'm doing good over here.
I was gonna say, Glory, the last time it was this cold, we were in California.
Yep, I do.
That's good. At least the campground pipes are doing okay, so you can still have access to water and toiletries. Oh my goodness. It is an interesting time for all of us to be doing this. Today we're going to be talking about living Advent. In other words, what does it mean to bring goodness and light into the world? I miss California so much. So, without further ado, let us begin as we have been with Glory lighting the candles and welcoming us into the Sabbath.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And I would like to invite you to join me in calling the archangels into our lives to connect us all in a giant circle so that we can experience some time in community together. May the Archangel Michael stand to our right, the Archangel of Compassion. May the Archangel Gabriel, the Archangel of Strength, stand to our left. May the Archangel Uriel, the Archangel of Light, stand before us to guide us on our paths. And the Archangel Raphael, the Archangel of Healing, stand behind us to heal all that we are and all that we leave in our wake. And may the Shekhinah, the glorious presence of God, ever be above us, enfolding us in her wings, where she might guide and guard us all the days of our lives. Amen. All right. So today may be one of those topics that I have yet to find a good way to label. I titled today's episode Living Advent, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are in the Advent season, and this is something I think about a lot this year as I am going through and kind of recontextualizing my year and everything that I went through and trying to figure out how to be better next year. So in the CS tradition, we believe that God is in everything and everything is in God. And that God is both something that is beyond anything that we can put into words and something that is so present that we can experience it in our lives. And as such, we are more or less uncomfortable with a lot of the anthropomorphic language that comes about when discussing the divine. And so as we're sitting here in the season of Advent, where those who are of a Christian persuasion are meditating on the birth of the Son of God into the world, the question arises of how does that work in a pantheistic mode, in a pantheistic way of thinking? And so one of the easiest ways to think about this, I think, is Rabbi David Cooper, who advises us to think about God much more like a verb. It's something that we do. It's not something that we believe. It's not something we assent to or have a higher vision of. It is what we do. So when we say that God is love, what we are also saying is that when we participate in love, when we are enacting love, we are giving rise to God in the world. When we do acts of justice, acts of kindness, acts of mercy, these are literally bringing the divine energies into our lives and into our world. And as someone who thinks about things way more than I should, and I did link an article I wrote about this down in the doobly-doo that's over on the Substack, and I've actually been backfilling it in that I've been going through all my old posts and linking them in on this topic to give a much broader view than what I just wrote for this year. I wanted us to really think about, what does it mean for us to act as a community, to bring forth community, to bring forth creativity, all of these good things, all of these things that we aspire to, that we want to have in our world, that we want to have in our life. What does it mean for us to do that, and how do we do that? because these truly are the divine energies that guide everything in our lives. In fact, a friend of mine who is a very avowed atheist got confused when she found out that I am not. And this is why I don't believe in a God that is a thing. I don't believe in a God that is a being. I don't believe in a man with a white beard in the sky. I believe that God is those things that connect us, that interconnect us, and that push us forward. God is the life that gives us strength to get through our days, the creativity that inspires our minds and our hands and our voices to do things. It's that is the urge for justice. And I have seen no argument against that sort of divinity. And so, well, I'm not here to debate whether or not there is a God, though we can do that if you want, because why not? I wanted to talk about community. I wanted us to start here because I think community is the one thing that we don't think about a lot when we think about the divine. And Brian McLaren, in his book, A Generous Orthodoxy, one of the definitions he gives for God is community. And he then goes on, because he is a writer, to spend like 40 pages unpacking this one idea. Because have you met a writer? I mean, I know all of us have, because I believe, yeah, all of us are writers.
I was like, we're all writers. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I had a moment with Tom, because I haven't read much of his writing or been exposed to much. I was like, oh yeah, even Tom. Yeah, Tom's a writer too.
I can arrange that, Charlie. You're about to. Tom's stuff's going to start showing up on the newsletter.
Nice.
His fiction and nonfiction.
So I really wanted us to start with just this idea of community and how we bring community together, because I know this is something, especially that Glory and I think about a lot. This is something that is very important to us, because as we have said, I think in every stream we've done,
Yeah,
we are for this that we are a pack species. Like, that's who and what we are. We are meant to be together. We are meant to go in groups, and
that is our strength. That is where we have succeeded over turtles. Okay. And otters, quite frankly. Look, they hold hands. That's great. But we work in numbers of dozens and hundreds to accomplish amazing technologies. And they're just holding hands in the river. Okay. Like, they're not in it like we are. That is our strength. That is really like that. And also we're durable. Oh my God, y'all, humans are durable. So that puts up with a lot of our stupidity. But that's our strength, is community. And the fact that, like, I get that we all have trouble getting along. That's why everybody talks about family drama. These are the people that you were just assigned out of random roll of the dice. And sometimes it's hard to get along with them. Oh, tell me about it. But if you think about it, we still do try to get along rather than just wander off and never speak to each other again. Although that is the Fink family style. But then we set up other little, we wander off and then we set up new families. But like, that is the human strength, ultimately. Like, we are durable alone, but we are amazing as a community. And what's more, we make community everywhere we go. Everywhere. Even if we got to use turtles and otters and rocks, we will make community everywhere. It is the hard wiring of human psychology to constantly reconstruct community.
The one reason I wanted to start with this is because it's become such a catchphrase lately. Like, have you started your community? Start your community on our platform. Our platform is a community for you. Join our community. Communities take work, y'all. Like, there's a difference between a collection of people and a community.
a rabble of humans that wandered in the building because it was warm and there was free food.
These are very different things. Communities, one, and I feel like I need to say this repeatedly, especially since I started from such a religious point of view. If everything in your community is focused on the leader, that is a cult. That is not a community. Leave. Run as fast as you can away, and don't look back.
But Charlie, they come with outfits and rituals.
The club, yeah. Communities are very horizontal institutions. They are about people relating to other people, not these kind of top-down pyramid schemes that influencer culture insists is a community.
All right. I'm going to break it down. This is something I have learned from studying various kinds of top-down cultures, like cults. And I encounter a lot of MLMs in this. And that is where I was originally studying it. So I once ran a home party company that was not an MLM. And I was like, I got to study MLMs to figure out what not to do so that we don't make those same mistakes. If you are exhausted, more mentally than physically, but still exhausted one way or another, you are so much more likely to go, oh, this top-down cult sounds great. Because as a human, you're just tired and you want someone else to make the decisions. That is a sign you are exhausted and that you live in a capitalist dystopia, and not that cults are good. Communities are good. Communities support everyone, but in unique connections. Cults are all about funneling the energy and resources upwards away from the base and not supporting the base. So guess what? If you're already exhausted, you're going to be more exhausted. That's the problem with cults, and why never quite last long enough, like truly long enough, is because they exhaust their base quite quickly. The greedier, the faster they exhaust their base. Not everybody is super greedy, or there's checks and balances to that greed, so it can take longer. But I just want you to know that if you or someone you know or love is this cult, what is it? Lululemon? Was that the one with the leggings thing?
Yep.
If you're like, hey, that's not such a bad idea, I feel so supported, ultimately they're going to drain you of even more energy and resources. So they have a siren song, and it's a useful siren song of, you're tired, let us help you make choices for you. That is a siren song, and then they will suck you dry. There's the difference, because I used to wonder, what is the difference between community and cult? It's a valid question. I mean, I grew up in the era of the Moonies and all that, and it turns out the Moonies are not gone.
Nope.
Wild. That they're doing quite well.
And half of them have guns on their altars.
Oh my God. Anyway,
yeah.
But I just thought it might be helpful for people to understand what is the difference, because I understand being cult shy, but I've seen a lot of people be community shy, not understanding the difference. The difference really does matter.
That's a community is, and you truly pointed out, cult power, energy, resources go up the ladder based on the importance of the person. Community, power, resources go down to the people who have the least capacity. That is what community is everyone, helps each other out.
Yeah, it goes to newer people, it goes to children, it goes to elderly, it goes to the sick. That is why community is so empowering and cults are so depriving, ultimately.
Yeah, the first time I heard a distinction between a community and a collection of people was actually through the work of Larry Kramer, who I quote way more than I probably should. But he, in one of his books, I think it was the Tragedy of Today's Gays, has a passage in there where he says we need to stop calling ourselves the queer community and call ourselves the queer people. We are people who have been gathered together because of a common trait. We build communities. There are many queer communities throughout the world that help each other, that are there for one another, and that are places that you can go to be restored and renewed. But we are a people. We are not just a community that has come together. We are a people that gain our first sense of solidarity through common traits and common oppression. And when I read that, I was like, are those different? And it took me a while to really tease out what he was trying to say there. You know, the things that I am concerned about living here in Southeast Missouri, as far as the problems facing the queer community, are very different to friends of mine who live in Georgia or California or New York, who are, yes, struggling with issues of transphobia and homophobia and all of that, but on a very different level and in a very different ways. The ways the attacks are worded against them is different, and the ways that they are building community is different. We have to be a lot more stealth around here in a lot of ways, and a lot of the queer people in the area are not out of the closet because it frankly is not necessarily safe for them to be. So the emphasis that we see in these more urban areas of the country about being out and proud, and yes, that's an important part of community activism, isn't entirely safe here for a lot of people. So they are out to people that need to know that they are out, so that they have a place where they can go, that they can talk, that they can have community. But we have to be very conscious of not outing them to others, and because it is not our secret to tell. And so that to me is where I really started to understand this difference between a collection of people and a community, because communities have their own intrinsic needs. They have their own they're almost like mini organisms in and of themselves. Different things will feed the local community different than a wider, larger people group. And so learning to find these things that bring strength and rejuvenation in, and also how you define what your community is. In his book Tribes, Seth Godin defines a tribe as a group that is based off of two basic means: who is in the group and who is outside the group. And a group truly hasn't formed until you have defined an outside border. Until then, it's a free-for-all. And again, first time I read that, I was like, do you really have to be exclusionary? Yes, you do. Because there are certain toxic attitudes, certain toxic behaviors that are not conducive to community growth. They are, to continue the analogy I was using of a community as an organism, they are a disease that will set in and cause problems. We see this in communities throughout YouTube, for example, with what happened in the makeup play, all of that.
Any of the many in the makeup too.
Right? We see this with what happened in the collapse of the drama channels. We see this in what happened in the collapse of the commentary channels. Even in the small group of AuthorTube, where most of us spend most of our time on YouTube, we have seen these dramas pop up time and time again over there as toxic elements keep trying to come in and take over and basically troll our little community. And so you have to have some filter that says we will not allow this here. And the way you can do that without becoming dogmatic, without becoming very territorial and gatekeepy, is by utilizing compassion. Compassion to me is the cornerstone of all communities. And when you look at how compassion operates, it allows for a lot of different people to be included. It allows for a lot of different points of view to be included. But if we're going to use for example, the language of the Charter for Compassion, which, if you're not familiar with them, charterforcompassion.org, they gathered scholars from all over the world and from all the different faith traditions of the world to agree on a common statement of what compassion is and how to do it. It was Karen Armstrong's wish when she received her TED Wish, and they gave her the money to hold this conference and to get this group started. And they're a fantastic group, and I've been working with them for years. But it boils down to two very simple things that most of us have heard in our lives. It's the gold and the silver rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and do not do to others what you would not have them do to you. And it's important for us to have both of these, because there are things that we want people to do for us. But if we do not also think about the things that we do not want done to us, we can excuse being mean, rude, cruel to other people. Because, I want everyone to be good and strong and be hitting their word counts. So I'm going to be an evil, vicious taskmaster that will yell at people and belittle them for not hitting No, I don't want somebody doing that to me. I need the silver rule to remind me. I don't need somebody yelling at me for not hitting my word count goals, right? We need both the gold and the silver rules to put the rails up. And the nice thing is, there's a lot of variety of things that you can do in between those two goalposts. It doesn't limit hardly any of the actions or behaviors that a decent human would want to take.
I mean, it does remind me of the lesson that I know I and a lot of people online were trying to remind people when the reactionary the time we don't talk about before 2020. And that essentially the rule of what is being a good, compassionate person in a society is we tolerate those who tolerate us. We cannot in any form tolerate the intolerant. If your end game is that I should not exist, it is not good of me to tolerate you, because you are not being tolerant of me.
Mm-hmm.
And, just try to remind everyone of, it's really important to keep that in mind.
And this is one of those things that we have the sociological data on this. We have watched countries and crumble because they did not take care of those groups that were wanting to tear them down from the inside, those groups that were trying to be a corrosive influence on them, the various racist, anti-Semitic, misogynistic forces that were rising up, and how they ended up consuming everything. Over on Nebula, I had to remember what platform it was on, there's a wonderful series called The F Word.
Um,
Brian, I'm echoing.
I was like, is it me? Oh, no.
There's a wonderful series. There's a wonderful series called The F Word that is looking at the rise of fascism and how it has actually happened over history and in various cultures. And one of the things that is common to all of these is a person who views themselves as a potential strongman dictator will start the racist dog whistles that turn into overt racism that then bring in the anti-Semitism, because it's not fascism without anti-Semitism.
No, it's one of the oldest bigotries. It's heartwarming, right?
And then you see the misogyny really ramp up. Misogyny is often the last thing that gets pulled onto the thing, because in order to get the numbers they need for the revolution, they generally will involve women in the early movement, only to exclude them later once they've actually achieved power. Which is something like really goes back to that poem. First they came for the socialists, and I was not a socialist, and I said nothing. Like, it really does come down to that. They will start naming enemies, and this is very much what Tom was talking about. You have to find those people that are being corrosive to the common good. And it's not about thought policing them. It's about figuring out what they're doing, not allowing people to inspire stochastic terrorism for example, which I'm not brilliant enough to know how exactly to write that law, but it is something that we need to be thinking about as we have a rash of these events happening around the country.
I mean, I know this is the weirdest example to bring up, but it does remind me of it. And I always thought it was one of the most interesting rules, which is how, up until the last decade, how has Turkey maintained a democracy in the 20th century? And they had a very interesting article in their constitution, which was that the general of the military can legally, create a coup if the civilian government is going to dictatorial behaviors and call for a new government. But that general must then leave the country and is never allowed back in. And that way, no one can grab power and keep it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it worked up until, per usual, we found there was a rise of populism in politics, and they essentially figured a way to, get around this. And that's what was tried in the U.S. very recently. And they found out the hard way that, no, the military doesn't go along with it. You can't strong-arm U.S. military. They're very much just we're here for peacekeeping and for money gains. We're not here for power. That's what the intelligence agencies are for.
And it can be really tricky, especially when you're in a position to help with the health and safety of your community, to figure out how to bring people in and how to, without creating the problems that you're trying to avoid, excise the issues, the people that are causing the issues from the community. And I wish I could say that we have found like the silver bullet, the easy way to do this. I'm one of those people that I believe that people can change because I know that I have. If any of you met me when I was in my 20s, trust me, none of you would have liked me. Not a single person on this panel would have talked to me. I was a terrible, terrible creature in my 20s. Luckily, I have grown. I'm not saying that I'm perfect or that I'm great, but I am so much better than I was. And so there is this instinct in me and in a lot of people like me to try to help people, maybe get them to see the error of their ways, maybe make amends, maybe not be as hateful and divisive as they're being. And so this is where compassion also has to go inward as well as outward. We are not responsible for fixing anyone. We are not responsible for anyone else's actions. You cannot change someone at all. People will not change that do not want to change. People will not improve themselves if they do not see a reason to improve themselves. They just won't. So there is this really hard time that I know I have gone through several times since we've started the community over on AuthorTube. And I know a couple times that Gloria and I have talked about that we jointly went through this with people, where there's a lot of hurt feelings because it could have gone a different way. You can see the other path. You could see how this could have been resolved in a better way. Things could have been handled differently. Things could have been handled in a way that did not result in a parting of ways. And it sucks, and it's sad, and it's hard to let that go. But you have to remember, you are not responsible for fixing that other person. The only person you have any responsibility for fixing is yourself. So if you can, just because you can see the way somebody could change or the way if they would only just listen to this one thing, or if they would only just stop harping on this one thing. Well, they have to want to do that. And that is really hard, especially for people that once you get really embedded in to the idea of compassion, to let go of this idea of, but I can help. Sometimes.
But do they want that kind of help?
Right.
I mean, part of compassion is not forcing your own wants on someone else.
Yeah, it's recognizing the gift and the power of free will, and coupling it with compassion. That really helps with that other part. We've run a decade-long experiment now with the Charter for Compassion as part of a business, and employees and all the other challenges that can arise from that, various lives and choices, and it becomes even more powerful once you realize the power of free will, because not only does it allow you to be compassionate, and you can try to help, and you can guide and suggest and urge, but you also recognize it is their choice in the end, and it is not yours, it's theirs. And once they make that choice, the consequences are the consequences. I mean, it is what it is. And so it makes it easier also on the other side, should they choose poorly. There's no longer an attachment, and there's no longer a suffering that comes along with that attachment, because it was their free will. And I've had, there was one employee who was struggling with drug addiction, and at the time they made some poor choices, but because of the power of compassion and recognizing free will, I was able to break things down. And then in the end, I had to let them go, but I also let them know that I was still there. I wasn't caught up in the emotions and caught up and distracted by all the other trappings that come along with addictions and such. I let them know, I was able just to be clear and concise. And later on, after they got themselves cleaned up, they came back and thanked me, and we're very thankful for the help that I was able to provide, even though it didn't seem like I helped at all in the moment, and they never came back and asked for help later. Just the words I was able to leave them with, and helping them to see, because they understood, they knew, they knew the choices they made, they knew it was on them. In the end, once they got past the blame game, and their own personal emotional baggage, they knew, and it just that free will becomes very powerful, especially coupled with it, I guess.
Which is very much what goes into that whole gold and silver rule. I don't want anyone to violate my my free will, but at the same time, I don't want people to let me continue to make a mess or be harming other people.
Sometimes you just have to try to raid that village from the boat.
Sometimes the village raids your boat.
Is that what you sometimes have to do? Is that the village raids your boat?
It's yeah. I mean, completely dumb in hindsight. Lesson learned. But hey, I appreciate the free will and the respect of free will to make such a dumb choice. Sorry, I thought I'd an little topical joke. Boy, that boat sank so fast.
I mean, people do
For
not and
reference
will
on
not.
that, join us on Thursday nights when Tom and Charlie and Brian play Valheim.
I mean,
That's very much an extended universe.
It's a hard lesson. It's a hard lesson to learn as an adult, that humans will not thank you retrospectively for taking away their choices.
And I've been very open about my own checkered past, because I feel like it's important for me to, as much as I can, demonstrate for people that there is an other side to those bad things. But was I happy when Barry basically locked me in his house and would not let me go out for a while because he knew that I probably wouldn't have made it through the night because I was going to score. And yeah, I was mad. I was angry. Am I grateful now? Very much so, because I got to see that I had become not just addicted, but just my entire being was about achieving the substances that I had trained my body to require. Like, it was so, I had not seen how addicted I had become until he basically got me to the point of sweats. Like, he got me to the point of like, you are not okay. You need to see that you are not okay. And he's one of the few people I would have ever trusted to do that, because he very much had my best interest at heart. And I'm not saying that you should just lock up everybody or anything like that. What I'm saying is that sometimes those I don't want to use the word intervention because that has taken on a very specific meaning in our culture. That is not what I'm talking about. But those interruptions in our thought processes and in our lives, while they can be very uncomfortable in the moment, are sometimes some of the best things that can happen to us. Sometimes we need somebody to shake us and wake us up, or hold a mirror up and be like, do you know what you look like right now? Do you realize what you look like right now, what you are doing right now? And that can be a hard thing to experience.
It's never easy to give your friend the ultimatum of, this is the point where we either one of us changes or we take two different paths.
Yeah.
But we can't stay together the way we are. One of us will have to change.
That's the other part of compassion is recognizing when those moments happen. It's like with children. We hold the child's hand when we're out walking because they haven't even learned how. They maybe still be learning how to look before running across a street or running into a street. And so that's where also that compassion kicks in, going, they just don't know better, because it's their free will to make their choice, but
accepts they don't know better.
Yeah.
Versus adults are all quite sure they know best, even though they don't necessarily know, because they haven't lived a whole life yet. There's the difference. The child is willing to accept the correction or the guidance. The adult is not.
Well, that's where you let the adult skin their knee. You don't let them get hit by a truck. Or in my case, you let me sink a boat in a fictional world. Not in real life. But yeah, because it would. Because and back to like what Tom said, where the adult definitely, usually, most cases, don't thank you for it either, because they don't recognize. Well, everybody thinks they know better.
And this is one of those things that I think so often gets either completely skipped over when Christians are talking about the teachings of Jesus, or gets so dramatically misconstrued. This idea that he keeps going back to, because one of the few themes that actually gets repeated multiple times, this idea that you need to be like a child. Be like a child. And it's not like, just be completely naive and everything will be okay, or just like, don't care about anything. There are things that we lock ourselves into as adults that make it easier for us to become judgmental, to be closed off, and to just presume, no, you don't understand. And it hurts me every time I hear someone say, well, you don't understand what I've been through. No, I don't. I will never understand what you've been through. That is the nature of being human. I have not lived your life. I have only lived my life. The purpose of us coming together in sharing any of our experiences together is I can tell you what I have learned from the benefit of the life that I've lived. You can take it, leave it, whatever, but that discounting of everyone else's experiences, this
You don't know me, man. You don't know what I've seen. I've seen things.
This pain Olympics that we get ourselves into sometimes, because those are the people that I tend to have to cut out of my life the quickest. Like the moment, like the first red flag is always, it seems to be that, well, you don't know what I've been through. And like, okay, then tell me. If we can have a dialogue, okay, maybe you're not one of the scary people that's going to be problematic later. But if we can't have a dialogue about it, ooh, big glowing red flag. But also those people of, like, no one has ever suffered like I have. Okay,
The ultimate martyr complex.
The drama queens.
No. In all the witch hunts, I have been more witch hunted than anyone else. The hallmark of grandiose narcissism. Okay.
So first of all, let's just acknowledge one thing. This is one true because no one has lived your life, so I've not suffered in exactly the same way you have, because my brain is not structured the same way as yours is, and we experience pain differently. Two, it doesn't matter.
So,
truly, first question: are you ginger? Then yes, you've got more pain.
This is true. This is 100% true. I've wondered because I was born with red hair and green eyes, and
I was a secret ginger as well. This is why we're the same person.
And I have wondered, like, is that true if your Dutch side beats the crap out of your Irish side as you get older and everything turns to mud?
How dare you come for me today? In this moment.
Oh, I had a weird phase in the middle of it because initially my red hair and green eyes, my eyes turned blue and my hair turned blonde for about 4 years, and then the embrownning happened. But
yes,
so the Dutch were trying to win, and then the Irish sucker punched them.
Yeah, there was violence in my genes.
Sorry, Glory.
I had ADHD. Where were we? Hold up. Let me get back there. Let us all travel back in time. 90 seconds.
Let us pull out the crane and put the train back on the tracks.
So in my personal experience, and that is all this is, every single time, particularly someone under the age of 40 tells me, and it does not matter my age in this regard, but someone under the age of 40 goes, you don't know, man, I've suffered. You don't know what I've suffered. And then I'm like, then tell me. I'm right here in this alley with you, watching you smoke a cigarette by a dumpster. Tell me right now. What are the things that I cannot possibly conceive of that you have suffered? Give me a hint, a taste, a soupçon. And whatever they have to say, it is, y'all, number one. I'm like, yeah, that sucks. It does suck, but it is not unusual. Go on, what else you got? And they're like, no, you're just saying that. I'm like, oh, are we showing scars? Here, I'll show you some scars. Here we go. Let me tell you some of the weird, and some of y'all, unfortunately, most of y'all have heard some of my background. Y'all have not even heard all of it, by the way. But
Same.
Have heard just the stuff from before I was legally allowed to live on my own. And they're always like, what? Like, yeah, like what you're trying so stoically to hold inside and be a good little soldier. Number one, doesn't rate. Number two, it hurts, but it's not unusual. This world is a veil of pain. And number three, you would feel a lot better if you shared that pain and were able to then find your community that will help support you as you process the pain, rather than try to stoically keep walking around like nothing is wrong when obviously everything is wrong because you hurt.
And everyone else can tell.
Yeah. Everybody has been through living hell. Harvard studies have proven this. Everybody, no matter their socioeconomic status, their gender, their sexual interest, like, no, does not matter. Everybody suffers. And what's interesting is, since pain is relative, most people suffer relatively about the same amount, which is wild if you think about it. So, like, the people who who have told you they're suffering, it's so terrible, and you're like, that is a Tuesday for me. What are you talking about? That is like this is, you're literally mentioning my last Tuesday. And they're like, it's so terrible and I'm still recovering, years later. But to them, it hurt as much as your worst day as well. So again, but it's the not sharing, it's not finding the community that makes the suffering 10 times exponentially worse. Because what is it? It's not a proverb, but like this phrase about when you share your pain with another, you cut it in half.
Yeah.
But when you keep your pain to yourself, it's twice as burdensome.
And that
is why
true.
Community, that's the magic of community, it is actually a very good pain reliever. And then, because here's the thing, when people are in pain and they think they have to carry the burden by themselves, they also often, because again, they're overloaded, they're like overwhelmed with this. It is using up all their brain processing power. They then tell themselves, it's okay for me to not be kind and compassionate to others because this world is terrible and painful. So it's okay that I am essentially adding on or not helping others by being kind or compassionate. That's what they tell themselves, not because they are inherently evil people, but because they are mentally so overwhelmed. Whether what the overwhelmed part is pain, or if it's suffering, or if it's just they haven't processed their grief over the fact that they had to finally accept they live in an unjust world. There is no part of this world there's no justice molecules that exist. It is a fantasy thing we have made up in the hopes that one day it will exist. And we're all going to keep trying because this is the shared delusion. And I'm totally on board and I vote for this shared delusion. This is one of the delusions.
And if you want to see just how true this is, look at the many different ways they have retold A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. We were talking about Christmas Carol last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scrooge is in pain. Every form of Scrooge is in pain.
He's in real pain. This is not imaginary pain. Somebody was rude to me 25 years ago and I haven't recovered. No.
And if even the most recent sequel, I guess you might even call it
Spirited.
Yes, Spirited. Scrooge is in pain.
He is. He's in a lot of pain and justified. Oh my God, when they do the back to his childhood, that's some dark stuff there that they're trying to it's not so bad. No, that's bad. That's real bad.
And that's, like you're saying, that's why it's really important for if you feel comfortable, because in all things, don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, but finding a group that you can talk to, whether it's a therapy group. There are a lot of, be very mindful whether or not you are joining a group for therapy or a victim association. I really feel like I have to say this. There, in my own experience as somebody who has had SA occur to them, as well as a lot of other violence that has been done to me, there are some groups that so identify with their trauma that I felt in those meetings more like it was, here's how you can hold it better. Here's how you can just hold it just right so that you just are always with it and always carrying it with you and not learning to be like, okay, well, it's not okay what happened, but I survived. I've gotten through it. I've gotten better and learning how to carry it. I think that's maybe the analogy that I'm trying to go for here. It's the difference between holding it so tight that it defines you and being able to carry it with you as something that happened.
Well, how I think of it is supportive communities teach you how to go from survivor to thriver.
Yep.
And because it is a rocky path. And there are many twists and turns and potholes and some diversions that will keep you away from the path where you actually genuinely inside feel like you are thriving in life. But good communities, genuinely supportive rather than, hi, let's keep you a victim. But good communities that are trying to help you move through and give you the coping skills you need to process everything you need to process in order to be a thriver. They are going to help hold your hand as you go through that process, because there's actually a bunch of processes that you've got to experience no matter what's happened. Even if it is mundane, everyday life happens and you lost people you love, it can still feel incredibly traumatic. So many people felt personally traumatized after 9/11, even though they lived hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from the events. They still felt like they had been personally attacked. That is legitimate.
Mhm.
Like I had already lived internationally at that point several times, and I had been even abducted by terrorists by that point. So I wasn't shocked when it happened. I was shocked in that, oh my God, we're in America. But it wasn't like the end of my world as I knew it, because I had already, unfortunately, been out in the globe. But it was an eye-opener for me to see how other people felt personally attacked here in Mississippi after 9/11, because they had never thought that America could be directly attacked like that. And they're like, I just don't know how people literally said to me in the months following, I don't know how I can like continue living my life and like raise my children. I'm like, you just do. Like the planet did not stop moving. We are still spinning around. We have to live our life. We have to move forward, if only for the benefit of the children we already have on this planet. They deserve to grow up into a world that functions. You just, every day, and yes, at the time, I quoted Sleepless in Seattle. You get up and you go to work and you go through the motions and you do the things and you go home and you sit on the couch and you let it happen. And the next day you get up and you do it again because you have to.
Yep.
But that is what a good community does, is there are people who've already had their world fall apart to say, yeah, mine did too. And they're like, this is what you do. You get up the next day and you get out of bed, and by gum, you're going to brush your teeth. Please. At least brush the ones you want to keep. You got to brush your teeth, and you're going to live that day because you've got to live. That's why you were given this gift of life. So you could go out there and do something with it, anything. You go out and you do it. And that is the benefit of a supportive community, is that there'll always be people who've already been through what you're going through to help hold your hand and say, keep going. You're doing great. Keep moving. Keep moving. Come and meet me over in this stop. We will rest. We will have tea. And then I will send you on your way again. Keep going. You're doing great. You're going to get to thriving. And you'll meet me. I'll be there for you right there when you're finally thriving. I will be at the finish line with you.
I would really like to change the definition of being an adult, as instead of somebody who doesn't play anymore, who has a lack of imagination, all the bad things that we define it as now, to somebody who has learned to find the people and the tools necessary to move forward in grief without hardening their heart. That to me is what a real adult is. Like the moment you have not figured out how to do the things, but how to find the resources to help you do the things. Because no matter what happens to you, it'll be different resources you need for each thing that happens.
This brings up an odd thing, but something I, as an adult, well, sort of when I was just sort of becoming an adult, I was very surprised at, and I've it's stayed in the back of my mind ever since, and it's not something you ever think of. And it's, when I was younger, I had some friends who joined the SCA, who did the medieval reenactment. And among them, this is the SCA, was not one but two families who the husbands were general contractors. Like, they had their own businesses. They did, they made houses. They did all of it. And I forget why it got brought up, but at some point, or maybe I think one of them was like improving his licensure or something.
Oh,
And it got
yes,
brought
I
up
remember.
what it takes to be a general contractor. And, if you ask somebody a kid, and you tell them what the job is, their response is going to be, well, they know how to work with wood, how to carve it, how to put it together. They know how to do, plumb and water and all of this stuff. That is the kid's response. The adult licensure for a general contractor is that you know where to go to look up the correct requirements for this aspect of a construction job. Not that you have memorized any of this book, because a general contractor's book is
Oh my God.
massive.
You
It
could
is-
you could give someone a concussion with this one.
because it
Really
involves
good.
every part that goes into a home.
Or stop.
That
It's
goes into a
multiple
building.
binders.
Yeah, it is many binders. And so their job is to know where to look and to know how to look and read it.
Mhm.
And that is very much what I've since seen of like what is a true professional as well as what's an adult. Because like in IT admins do not know the shortcuts and codes and programs for everything. We know the search terms to go look up and find, and where to go to find the resource.
Yep.
To figure out what is the problem and then how to fix it. And so again, like this is also what it is to be a profession as an adult.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's not that you already have all the answers. It's that you know how to go find the answers, and also even how to diagnose what's the problem.
Mhm.
Because if you are trying to solve the wrong problem, well, the original problem's still there, and you haven't actually made any progress. But you sure have spent some time treading water.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, the real answer to what is wisdom, what makes somebody wise, it's knowing how and who to ask the right questions to. That's real that is real wisdom, and that's what everyone should be striving for in life.
Mhm. Agree.
Alrighty, we are going to take a brief break to just kind of relax, maybe go get and refill on our beverage, walk around, maybe take a bio break. When we come back, we will be discussing how we can embody creativity not only in our work but in our lives. How do you make your lives more creative? Like maybe sending your friends little gloves and stuff so that their hands aren't cold in really cold weather. Just little things that you can do to bring more creativity into your life. So we are going to be using a timer created by the wonderful Laura Nettles, which I thought was so beautifully on theme for the holidays. I just love this little tea timer so much. So we will be back in 10 minutes. So go get yourself something to drink, get up, walk around, or just or if you need to meditate, take a moment to meditate. We will be right back. And we're back. And I love that message of warmth, because if there's anything so many of us need right now, it's warmth. Please, please. May I have my warmth back, please? I went and got my house coat because I needed more layers. You can't see the blankets that I've got down here, but now I have the house coat on because I needed layers. I'm like a reverse onion. I'm just adding them on more and more.
Sometimes as a sibling, I just walk around in my undies just to, offend my sister.
No. Let me paint a picture. He's just in his camo boxer brief. He's got the little jacket mini scarf around his neck, and he's got his fingerless gloves on and nothing else.
And socks.
No socks? Only sometimes.
Okay, at one point I didn't have socks.
He's just walking around. Just did some raggedy old underwear and some of the things I've crocheted. Nothing else, y'all. Just walking around. And the cat's like, skin to skin contact. Like, it's happening.
So I do think it would...
I'm in an entire family of nudists. I'm the weird one who's like, more clothes, please, more layers.
And yes, it's chilly in this house. I'm still comfy.
I do think we have now discovered the one thing, though, that would be more awkward than like nothing but socks on, and that's nothing but the neck warmer. Like, if you saw somebody running around like everything else is fine, but my neck must be warm.
I've known several people like that.
And in the gloves, show them your mismatched gloves.
You have mismatched?
Yeah, somewhere they're hiding.
I know.
I've got matched ones to go outside in the world in.
These are the ones I have to hide from the cats because I don't know what it is about this yellow stripe, but they see it and they're like, that is mine. I will own it. And they keep trying to grab them and run off with them. So I have to keep them hidden when I'm not wearing them. Because the cats...
Mine are tucked away in my coat pocket, so I have them when I go out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Joe was putting away the lighter jackets to free up space on our coat rack. And he found the little thing that my mom had crocheted with buttons on it. And you looped your mask on, and you can pull it behind your head, and then it saves the back of your ears.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Oh, that does remind me. I was going to wear... what have I got here? I was kind of like, which one? This one. This one doubles as ear warmers as well.
See, I would have on one, but someone stole it.
I know.
Oh, you're giving it back? Oh, it's Magic Day. It's Magic Day. I get to have my head warm. There we go. Put it on as a weird crown because I have headphones on. So I can't hear anything. There is nothing but chaos.
There. That's 80s fabulous.
Freedom. Freedom. There's been winning all day. Nothing but freedom.
And by the way, it is 62 degrees in here in the living room. And it's really colder than that, but the thermostat, my little living room thermometer is right above a light bulb. So it's more like 59 degrees in here.
So
and he's walking around with nothing but underwear and some crochet items.
Yesterday, we learned the power of optical illusions on the brain because we have different light settings for our lights to help throughout the day. And right now, I actually have the green light on because it's this frequency of light that's supposed to trick your brain into thinking that you're like seeing the dappled light coming through the leaves, and it's supposed to make you calmer. And it actually does help a lot. But at night, we turn it into a darker light. And when the light went from this brighter light to the darker light, it instantly felt colder in the house. even though nothing had changed.
Mm.
Because that perception of bright light and warm and basking in sun went down. Oh, where did all the heat go? And it was just this instantaneous perception that had nothing to do with reality. The actual temperature in the room did not change at all. It did not have time to change at all. It was just the light dimmed, and all of a sudden we were both like, why is it suddenly cold in here? Oh, our brains were tricking us into thinking it was warmer because we had a brighter light on. Always fascinated by those little weird things that our brains do to us that we are not conscious of in the moments that we become conscious of them. And on that note, I actually feel like that's not a half bad segue to start talking about the power of creativity. One of my favorite things in the world for several reasons. One, for those of us in the CS community, one of the 4 paths that we talk about, you see the animals around us here, one entire path is dedicated to the path of creativity, the Via Creativa. And we really actively encourage people for meditation to do art as their meditation, whether it's clay or drawing or writing poetry or writing a story or what have you, to really engage with your creativity, to get in touch with yourself and with your spirit. And the more I have done this over the years, the more I've realized the little moments of creativity that slip by that are unseen, that are not something that I would think about. So, for example, these wonderful fingerless gloves that I am wearing were made for me by Glory. Now, if you look, on each one, there is a thin side and a thick side around where the thumb hole is. One of the things that I have unconsciously done, and I've just noticed this year, is when my palm is cold, I always put the thick end up here. When my wrist and arm is cold, I put the thick part down here. I don't consciously know I'm doing this. I only just started noticing that I'm doing this when I noticed the other day that for some reason this year, I was wearing the one with the tag on it on the other hand. And it would move back and forth. I'm like, am I just not paying attention to where I'm putting it on? It's like, no, my fingies are cold. I need more material up top. These little, like, unconscious creative choices that are sneaking in everywhere. Like, again, earlier today, I put cinnamon in my coffee. Why did I put cinnamon in my coffee? I didn't even think about it. I just walked by, added cinnamon to my coffee, and suddenly I'm like, oh, it's so nice and cozy and warm in here because this wonderful cinnamon giving flavor. There's so much that we do both consciously and unconsciously to bring our creativity into our lives and into all of the little things that we do, that I feel like if we could not necessarily make ourselves more conscious of it, but to more consciously do it, we would have a much better experience with our day-to-day life. And the one thing that I think about constantly with this is every time a certain somebody, who will know exactly what I'm talking about immediately, talks about her candy canes in the cocoa, because I love cocoa. I have candy canes. Why do I never put them together? I know that this is a thing that I can do. This is a creative practice that I don't participate in, though I know that it is delicious and I want to do it.
I was just thinking, because I have a candy cane that's sitting right here. I'm like, I need to make myself some hot chocolate and then mix the two together, because that is like excellent.
But there are a lot of these little moments of creativity that we could implement into our lives to just make things a little bit more magical, a little bit more cozy. I remember, what was that, 3-4 years ago, when that book on Hoogie was going around and everybody and their cousin was reading it. Like, the one thing that I got from that book is don't be boring. Just ask yourself, how can I make this 10% cozier? Like in all your decisions, like that. Save yourself the book. Like the book was fun to read, but like if you don't want to read an entire book on this one idea, the moral of the story is, in everything that you do, ask yourself, how can I make this 10% cozy? What can I do to just add 10% more cozy to my life and make it just a little bit better? That's going and getting the house cold.
Hughie.
I mean,
Hughie.
You essentially bring up, at least to me, what I've always heard is, all right, so you want to be more creative. How do you be more creative? And it's one simple thought, but it's a thought older people hate, because we are exhausted by choice. And it's, how could I do this differently? That's it. That is what creativity is options.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, what is something different I can do?
Oh, yeah.
What
Overwhelmed
is
people
something
hate
different?
options.
And so this is where, for us at least, doing a lot of role-playing games has helped us. Like we have the wall OT in the kitchen because we like a lot of different arbalités, and we have like literally, how big is that wall cabinet that you made for them? Do you know offhand, Brian?
It was 7 foot on the bottom.
It's 7 foot on the bottom.
And
Your microphone's not on, by the way.
The top section, so it's 2 sections. The bottom section was kind of a 7 foot by 2.5, almost 3 foot cube, and the top section was another 4 feet tall and about 5 feet wide. It was designed so you could have 2 fish tanks on the ends, on each end, which is why the top section was narrower in.
No, the tea thing in the kitchen. Do you think I said TV?
I thought you said TV thing. Oh, I was doing TV stand. I was like, it's a huge TV stand. The tea thing. Oh, that tea thing.
We have
Gosh.
in this house.
I just slapped that together because I got tired of the tea being everywhere, and
It's just a thing.
it was just
nothing.
a thing I just created on the
It
fly.
practically float. It's fine.
This magical, wonderful thing that you brought into the life. This is what I'm talking about not noticing when our creativity is a blessing. Right here on exhibit.
Blessing, but it was just a thing. It was just in the moment. Just did it, and it was. I don't know. It holds like 50 some different teas, so it's like wall of tea.
I was gonna say, one of the things, especially as adults, we often forget is the reason the Japanese, I forget what the word is, but essentially it just translates to mouth sad. And why you want to put things in your mouth is,
when
as
you're
humans,
not hungry. Why do you want to put things in your mouth when you're not necessarily hungry?
And yeah, and a lot of it, at least for me and some of the people I know, is that as humans, the way, a long time ago, millennia upon millennia ago, the way the body kept its nutritional needs up is we want variety. We don't want to eat the same thing over and over. And so to actually have a satisfied mouth and stomach, we need many flavors. And if you don't get those in, you will your body will eventually trick you into getting some in, and then it's like, yeah. When you see that, just I must just consume all of it, because your body wants that variety. And so, like, even with my weight loss, it's always been a
pint of ice cream.
Yep. But with weight loss, like, one of the things I've been working on is how many different flavors can I have every day? How many different, how many teas can I use? How many, condiments can I add in? What are the different ways I can try different things? And that really helps a lot.
That deprivation mentality that so much of that revolves around, yeah.
But people don't eat as much when they have more variety. They eat a lot more when they only have 1 or 2 things to eat, because their body's trying to get all those nutrients in, and if there's one small nutrient you haven't quite topped up on, it's like, it doesn't matter if there's all this other junk, we still got to get to that little extra bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we need variety, and the same thing for our creativity. We need that variety.
Mm-hmm.
And until we get it,
So the trick I was trying to talk about before we got into the side quest with the fish tanks, is we have dice everywhere. So there are days when, like, I don't want to make a decision. You can't make me. There's not enough money in the world to make me make a decision. I'm done. I'm done. I hit my quota earlier in the day. I'm done. Pull out a die, whatever the number is, count that many teas in. That's the tea I'm having. And I have to say, randomness can really bring a lot of joy in. There are ways to get around that kind of paralysis over making decisions that can really make things a lot of fun. We use dice a lot for things because it's an easy way to break the ties and make decisions.
Well, and for me also, like, if I find myself grumbling about a thing, instead of just giving into the negativity and the negative spiral, I'll engage in an act of creativity to dig it out. And the tea, for instance, being one of them. I was grumbling about all these teas, and the where we were storing them, it was just clutter everywhere, and they were in the way, and they bothered me when I was cooking. And instead of just being all negative and complaining and trying to, like, just get rid of tea or whatever, all the variety, I just was like, oh, let's engage in creativity and see what would be a fun solution. It's like, oh, it'd be fun is to know about all of them and have them up where they're more displayed, and replace this section of the wall with a multi-shelf unit that's now just a wall of tea that you can practically roll a D100 on.
Brian's a bit Ron Swanson when it comes to solving most problems. Like, can I fix this with woodworking?
I was about to say,
I'm pretty sure there's a way I can fix this.
Wood could. Let's try.
I mean, can't say anything. Glory came back from visiting relatives a few decades ago, and this family didn't really cook. But what they did have was a wall, a closet?
An actual wall. Like a kitchen whole wall unit, custom built. A wall of cereal. Imagine every cereal in America. And it was not in the cardboard boxes. No, they're not trashy people. It was in those Tupperware cereal containers. A wall. I one day sat there and counted 86 cereal containers, and that wasn't counting the ones that were obstructed from my view, but I didn't want to move things. And those are mostly David's personal cereals that he liked, grown-up cereals, like, things to get things moving sometimes. His daughters were not interested. He had 3 daughters because my mother would not sell me to him. When I was a toddler, David was absolutely, like, in love with me. There are recordings of this somewhere. And he just thought I was the best thing that ever. And he was like, fine, I'll go out and make my own babies. And he literally did. He literally found a woman who was like, sure, I'll give you babies. And gave him 3 little girls every 2 years.
And then they didn't really communicate again. I'm like, it was a true.
They got divorced. She got her money. She went off to Hawaii, and he raised 3 little girls, stair-step 2 years apart. And they were so precocious. They were everything he wanted. But because he was he wasn't home that often. I mean, he had a housekeeper, and he had other babysitters for the girls, when they weren't in daycare, then school, and so on. They weren't alone. But, he always wanted them to feel empowered, that they never have to sit around and be hungry. That he was very concerned about this. I think because I had, as a toddler, talked about how mom doesn't feed me all the time, and I'm hungry, and I just have to sit there because she said I'm not allowed to go in the kitchen. He's like, oh, no. And so he constructed with his hens badly, and then he hired a real contractor to fix it. A bespoke wall of cereal, and there was always 5 gallons of milk in the fridge.
I won't be mad about this.
And
you feel inspired.
they'd move their little kitchen chair around and get onto it like toddlers shouldn't do, but do. And they would get their favorite cereals, and they would then get their bowls. And if they wanted to go back to it, they knew where the lids were to put on those little Tupperware cereal bowls. You know, they were but they were like, oh, if we're ever hungry, we just go get cereal. And it was every cereal they could want, ever. They had a housekeeper who made them hot dinner every single day. She was a very good cook. But they loved cereal because, again, they knew that all this cereal their father brought home. Their father would go, when he would travel, he'd go to supermarkets anywhere in the country that he was traveling, because he sold those green books, that used to have like buy one, get one free coupons to all these restaurants.
I remember those.
And all those. That's what David did for a living, was he started up all of these little green book companies all over the U.S. And so he had to travel. He'd go and buy cereal all over the country if he saw a different brand he'd never seen before. So the girls could always have cereal. And they really did feel empowered to always feed themselves from literally 2 years old. When they were 2, they were allowed to start getting the cereal down and put it in their bowls. They'd do it on the floor because they're so short. And they would always, he's like, look, it's not the best food in the world, but they'll eat it. They won't complain about it. It's most children's cereals fortified, so it's got something. And then there's milk. It has the protein. It has fat. I'm not worried about them eating that, versus they could be trying to make all sorts of other things. It might be dangerous, because, like, let's be honest, toddlers don't have great hand-eye coordination. Do you really want them handling even a plastic knife? Not really. So that was the wall of cereal.
So Jules, hello, Jules,
Hello.
said I decided to try creating the painting watercolor that I want to see in the front of my bujo for the next year. I would love to be a bullet journaler, but is not in the cards for me. Let's just say it was a good thing I decided to attempt it first before painting it in the journal. Ooh, did it bleed through the paper? I have so many questions.
Could be anything.
I have so many questions because I could think of so many ways that if it were me, that would definitely go terribly wrong.
And bullet journals, though, kind of brings up a little caveat as we talk about variety and choice. Is that there are places we feel safe and comfortable and enjoying with variety, and especially because just about everyone here is neurodivergent. There's places where we absolutely cannot stand any variety. We need consistency. And so, again, this is part of that compassion we talked about last hour, of just because this works for you doesn't mean it works for others. For some people, bullet journals is where they have their variety, of where every day or every month is so different in the journal of how they are tackling things. But their clothes are the same every day. They are, they have taken the CEO of a tech company route, and the clothes are all identical. The same shirts, the same pants, the same shoes, no choices there, because they feel comfortable in this outfit. But the bullet journal, there is so much creativity there.
So much.
It's not that you have to have variety in everything in your life. No. But always making sure there's room for variety and room for fun and whimsy. I mean, one thing I often hear people forget about when they talk about variety, and like, we're all writers, so we bring up tea and drinks. That I, don't always hear them is something, Glory loves. And that is potion brewing with your teas. Of which tea bags am I going to combine into this drink
I have been
to make a new special bespoke drink?
He makes fun of me because, like, even my recipe to make coffee just the way I like it, he's like, look at this. A witch made this. This is not a proper how to make coffee recipe. This is a witch. I'm like, okay. But
theory is valid.
No, that I think I was referring to your oatmeal.
Oh, yeah.
Which requires a minimum of 4, preferably 6 different spices.
All right, that's fair. Anyway, like, But here's what I told Tom when it's like, figure out how you like it. And you do not know how you like it till you try it other ways. And then you can pick and choose the parts you like and the parts you don't like. Yes, I love 2 kinds of cinnamon, ground ginger, allspice, green cardamom, maybe some ground mace, maybe some ground cloves, maybe some black pepper. You don't know till you've had all those in your, porridge. And then you know what you like. Maybe you like all of it. Maybe you only like some of it some of the time, and other time you mix it around. You don't know till you try. And then you can have it every day the way you like it. But exploration, I think, is a very important part in staving off the mouth sadness. Because maybe you've just been putting up with stuff for decades.
Brian
So many people eat food that they're not happy to eat, and I'm like, no, this is not about be grateful there's starving children somewhere. Who cares? We're all starving anyway. It's more about, do you want this or is this a burden to you? Because, remember that the kid from A Christmas Story? Nah, she's just sort of trying to shove it in his face. And yeah, that looks like the saddest oatmeal ever. This looks like glue. As I said, I've told y'all before, it looks like Aunt Susan's oatmeal. And yeah, I called out Aunt Susan. So, that's obviously, if he even likes oatmeal, that's not how he likes oatmeal. He needs to figure out, I know I'm talking about a little kid, but he does need to figure out how he likes it. Because mouth sadness becomes body sadness, which eventually becomes mind sadness. And that is what we really need to avoid. Because here's the problem with mind sadness. It then becomes apathy. And apathy is the true evil among humans.
Yes. So Brian wants me to show off the thing that he did today. We had apples with our oatmeal. So he skinned them all into ribbons to take the skin off.
Like a goblin. Go on.
Yes, like the little goblin that he is. But then hung them up over by the vent so that the house has smelled wonderfully of apples all day.
Yum, yum.
Because they're just hanging over there to dry. And just used a simple clip to hold them together. Please put these
magnetic clip.
But yeah, it's the little things, because one of the most important things that my grandmother taught me is she was terrified of becoming her mother. And I think all of us on some level have that person in our family that, dear God, don't let me grow up to be them. And her mom was very set in her ways. And unfortunately, her ways were like the 1920s. That's about when she decided to set into stone who she was going to be, which, since she lived to be 96, it was not a happy road. Because we left the 1920s very quickly.
And again, more a sentiment about surviving rather than thriving. Of how do I need to be, and what do I need to do to survive this world rather than to thrive in this world.
And so she was very big on always trying new recipes, always trying new things, having new experiences, going places that she hadn't been before. And it was not so much she was not a very adventurous person. When you talk about her life, she sounds like this amazingly adventurous person who decided in her 70s to go whitewater rafting for the first time, and it wasn't because she wanted the adventure of it. It was an experience she hadn't done. She didn't want to become set in her ways. She didn't want to atrophy into just the apathy that she saw her mother and father develop into. And she really encouraged me and all of her grandkids to try to do new things all the time, whatever they are. If you haven't a chance to try something new, if somebody's wants to go to a restaurant and you've never heard of the food, if they don't mind you, if it's not going to cause a problem for you to ask if you can join them, ask if you can join and go and try that food. Whatever it is, try new things all the time. Don't get set in your ways. And of all of my grandparents, she was the most joyous of all of them. Even though, I mean, she had a really hard life. I mean, she had cancer several times. Like, she went through a lot. I'm not going to like go through the whole long list. But she kept this kind of childlike joy because every day she woke up, she knew she might find something new to do today. And that was the attitude that she took towards life. And it's one that I try very hard to do as well. Yes, I am very set in my ways in certain things. I like patterns. I really like my patterns, and I really like my rituals. And there are some things that they will happen in this order or the entire world will end. Like the apocalypse has started and my brain completely melts down. I'm sorry. But I know the places where it is safe for me and comfortable for me to push those envelopes and to try those new things, those new flavors. Like, I may not like it, and we have the rule of, like, if we're going to buy the thing, we have to take at least one bite of it. We can try the weird food. We don't have to swallow the weird food, but we have to try at least one bite of the weird food to see if we like it. We also do this with things over the years that we know that we don't like, that we will bring into the house again, because we know for a fact how much our palates have changed. You know, we're both in our 40s now. There are things that I love today that when I was a kid, I didn't just dislike them. Like, they made me nauseous to taste them. You know, and that's because as you get older, your taste buds change, and you know, the more bitter flavors, the more earthy flavors stand out to you a little bit more, and you know, it's a little bit more interesting. And so we try all the time to be bringing in things just to keep from getting set in our ways. Like, I didn't start playing around with TikTok because I thought, ooh, what I need in my life is really short videos of people doing random things. It was, I don't want to turn into my parents and grandparents who have no idea what everyone else is talking about. Like, even if it's not for me, I want to know what it is. Like, I can then know, oh, this isn't for me, you know, or, oh, there's this part of it that I really do like, or whatever. But I want to know what it is. I don't want to be like, well, why would anybody want a 2-minute video? A 1-minute video? Why would anybody want that? I checked out the shorts on YouTube. I remember Vine, like the idea of 6-second video. Who would want a 6-second video? 6 seconds.
Vine.
What could you do in 6 seconds? Right? But I also felt that way when a friend told me about Twitch for the first time. Why would I want to sit and watch somebody play a video game for hours? Why would I? And now I spend my weekend very often watching people play video games on the TV. We spend nights sometimes just watching people playing video games on the TV. We do a video game stream on Twitch now because it didn't make sense to me, because that's not the experience I had in my youth. Like, you would never sit and watch a person playing a video game unless you were waiting for your turn at the arcade. You know, it was just, you know, or somebody was, when the fighting games were really big and you were watching two people really go at it. That was my actual avenue in, is when a friend of mine was like, didn't you ever stand at the arcade watching people playing Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat against each other when they were really like having a good go at it? And I was like, oh yeah. And oh yeah, it can be fun to watch somebody just play a video game. But I don't want to personally be somebody who is prejudiced against something because it is new. Mm-hmm. And this to me is a big part of this idea of bringing creativity into my life, bringing it in and seeing, is this a thing that could benefit me, that I could enjoy, and not just being, ew, no, that's what the kids are doing these days. Am I the biggest fan of a lot of modern pop music? No, I'm not. Do I listen to way more of it than I ever thought I would as a person who's 46 years old? Yes, I do. Because I found some that I really, really do like. And it makes my life better. You know, it's keeping me dancing. It's keeping me moving. It's keeping me from atrophying. And that's, to me, the point and purpose of bringing this creativity in. Finding those little moments where you can, like, I don't know why I'm like low-key obsessed with Dua Lipa's music. It makes me want to dance. Like, do I think she's the greatest singer ever? No. Do I think it's the greatest songs ever? No. That beat, I can't but help but dance. I will dance in my chair. I will get up and dance around the house. I will get up and move. So yay, I am glad that I have this in my life. And I get concerned as I get older that I will start shutting that off and start shutting that down and start, I see the nostalgia waves hitting me of like, oh yeah, I really miss the music when I was in high school. Was the music when I was in high school better than the music now? No. We had Barbie Girl. Like, no. Ska was a thing. It was not better.
Why do
There
you
was
bring that
ska.
up?
I still like ska.
But not even like good Jamaican ska. Like, we had like weird angry white girl ska and weird, I don't know what I'm doing with my guitar, white boy ska. Like, was it? No, but it is nostalgic and it makes me think back. And I don't want to get trapped in this circle that I see so many people in my family get into, where they're just watching the things that they did when they were kids, when they were younger. They're like, I see this with some of my older siblings, because I am literally the baby of the family. There's 11 years difference between me and my next sibling. I am quite literally the baby of the family. And I see them just getting stuck in their ways, and they're just listening to that music that they were listening to in the 70s and the 80s. They're just watching reruns of the TV shows that they liked in the 70s and the 80s and complaining about reboots of them, but not even checking them out to see if they'd be interested in them. And that is, to me, at its heart, a lack of it's losing this creativity of, ooh, is this new? Can I play with it? That, I think is so vital to us to stay healthy and to stay, I don't know, mentally well.
That kind of brings up something I wanted to mention as well, but I talked about this on Glory and I's show at least a few weeks back. I don't remember what we called it. But it was, nostalgia can be a good thing.
Yes.
It is not always bad. It can be, because nostalgia can imprison your personality and mind.
Yeah.
In a way to avoid change and growth. But it also but it also reminds us of who we were and can remind us of the things we like that we may have forgotten. So, to do a silly one, an absolutely ridiculous piece of nostalgia that I know a bunch of people did that I didn't, but still. When the Ghostbusters, what was it called? Rebirth? Reunion?
Resurrection?
Afterlife.
Afterlife?
Yeah,
we
came out. I see re-released after 30 years. I forget how long. They're ecto coolers.
Yes.
Which was, truly, how brightly color can you make a drink?
So, like,
without it being radioactive.
Yes.
How is it still legal to drink something so fluorescent?
But you know what? You remember it as a kid. You have these fun memories.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try it again, and you get a sort of hit, and you're reminded of what it's like to be in that state of mind. And so what I always look at and encourage people to understand and use nostalgia for is to remind you what your joy and fun is like in your creativity, so you know what else to look for now. It's still out there. There's still new sources, as Charlie was talking about. There's reboots, there's changes. What is it you're looking for now, though? Like Laura and I were looking at the reboot not the reboot, but the second season for Perry Mason, and we're just like, we don't care that much for Perry Mason because it's so dark and gritty. We like Matlock, though.
Yeah, we were both like, where's the reboot of Matlock?
Because Andy Griffith required the positivity in there.
Like, I would be open to a reboot of Matlock as long as it had the rule Andy Griffith had to do the show, which is it has to have a hopeful ending. Because I need some hope, y'all. I can't keep making it from scratch. Sometimes I need to have some commercial manufactured hope, to get me through the lean times. And because Perry Mason's always been very gritty, even the original one, and the books are even, if I recall correctly, the books are even grittier.
Yep.
And the radio show, dark stuff.
The radio show was downright noir.
Yeah, but I would love a hopeful version of Perry Mason, which is Matlock, but I'd be happy for a reboot or a new version. And we were talking about that of I miss Andy Griffith, but I'm opening for a new attempt.
And it's, and they come out, sorry, you guys say?
Oh, I just saw Stacy say I'm not much younger than you are, but I try to balance what I like from 5, 10, 20, or even 30 years ago and still watch, listen, and learn new things. Yeah. And we have to do that.
And the other side to me, though, of nostalgia, sort of the diametric opposition to nostalgia, is find younger people to be friends with. Find commonalities you have with them. And so you get to see their excitement and, remind of how do you just stay happy and creative and keep those in balance of, if you only stay with people around your age or even older, a lot of the media and reminiscing you're going to talk about is stuff from decades ago. You're not going to hear anything of the current. You want to go find the people who are still looking for new stuff.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always had. You got to try something new because you'll wear out all those old things. They start getting threadbare. Back in my day, things were so great. They were not so great. You're overly romanticizing. Move on. Go find new things to fall in love with. New things to feel romantic about. And if you can't find any new things, at least go find a younger person and watch them fall in love with things so you can remember what it's like to feel that.
I mean, it wouldn't be a stream with me if I didn't bring up some idea from meta-modernist thought, would it? There's this wonderful technique that we talk about a lot, which is creative pastiche. Where, if you know, a pastiche is when you basically replicate the style or form of something so that you are, I would say, The Rings of Power is a pastiche of Tolkien. It is
the least pretentious definition of pastiche I've ever heard in my life. Congratulations, Charlie.
I told you, I'm overly academic most of the time.
I love it, but as I said, the least pretentious definition I've ever heard. Congrats. You're doing a great job.
Constructive pastiche is when you're mimicking that thing, but changing it, updating it, making it work in a different way. And it's one of the techniques that I find super powerful for making things feel new. And it's one of, I'm probably going to end up doing an episode for my Project Shadow podcast about this in regards to Wednesday Addams, because I feel like it is a constructive pastiche of the Addams Family. It has all of the things, all of the signifiers that you expect. The opening music has the harpsichord in it. They incorporated the snaps because, of course, it's the Addams Family. That has to be in there. All of the characters you expect to see in the core Addams Family, we get to see. Gomez, Morticia, Pugsley, Wednesday, Thing, and Fester, right? The core family. We get to see all of them. But it doesn't stop there. It asks questions of what if she was a bit older? Because in every version of the Addams Family, Wednesday is a child. In this one, she is a teenager. So we have aged her up, which adds another whole layer of questions there. It asks, well, what do we do with the whole genre that became popular with the Harry Potter books of let's do weird murder mysteries at kids' schools? because parents would definitely not take their kids out. And I know that you have a story of like, no, they wouldn't. They would leave us there. But it takes all of these things that have happened in culture since the last major Addams Family TV series and brings it all in a way that is constructing something that you kind of feel that kind of Vampire Diaries vibe in some of the characters. You feel that kind of teenage supernatural show thing that is a whole genre that is developed in the interim in there, while maintaining the sense of Addams Family. It made something that is at once immediately recognizable. It is the Addams Family. All of the characters are there. They're acting mostly the way that we would expect them to, and the few that are acting out of character, it's because she's a teenager now and doesn't want to be like her mom. Gosh. Because
I'm trying to forge my own identity. Duh.
Stop saying we're the same. But it makes
just wait till you're in your 40s and your mother's gone, and then you could finally like, yeah, we're the same.
And yeah, she's a bit more impulsive now because she is again trying to break out of the mold of her mother. She's
Let
trying
alone
to find her own character.
Identity.
And this technique is very handy for us when we're trying to bring stuff forward. How do we bring this stuff into our lives again? You know, I think back to the wonderful bonfires that I went to in my youth. I will never be able to recreate those. It's not as simple as, can I find drummers? Can I find belly dancers? Can I find a place where we can set up a fire? Because it won't be the same if there's not a Fergus there. Like, it doesn't matter if we find somebody who makes really good strawberry mead for Beltane. It doesn't matter if we have this person. They won't be Fergus. Fergus brought an energy to that event that without him being there, it would never be the same. I get all the other people together, but without that one person, it just would not feel right. And this is something that we talk about a lot, is dealing with loss. And this is where this creative pastiche really helps us. Well, how can I take a version of that and incorporate the talents of my new friends? Like if I were to do a Beltane bonfire with the people that are on screen, oh, you better believe we never had smoked meats at the old ones, but hey, Tom, do you know any special smoked meat recipes for Beltane? Hey, do you know any bread recipes that would be good for a Beltane party? Hey, Megan, what amazing things are there out in California that you can bring us to the you know what I'm saying? Like, what traditions can you bring? Making it new, making it fresh, keeping that nostalgia of the old thing, right? Having finding the drum and the music, the fire. You can bring that with you, but you have a new set of people that you can plug in and let it grow and let it develop and become its own new thing, with all of the signs and signifiers of the past. And that really, really is a good way to keep from getting stale. Alrighty. So it's about time for us to take another little 10-minute break. When we come back, we're going to be knocking out the two last things, because I feel like these go together. And that is, how do we bring hope into our lives in this world where everything wants us not to have hope, because that's how they get us to spend more money. And how do we find meaning? And should we even be looking for it? So that's what we're going to be talking about when we come back. We're going to put up the same timer again because I thought it was ever so lovely.
It's a beautiful timer.
Laura does good work, and I'm hoping she's having all the fun with her family. If I'm doing time zones right, I think she should be with them by now. So if you need to go get yourself a beverage, if you need to just get up and walk around, if you just need to step away from people for a minute, we're going to go take 10 minutes and do a little bit of a refresh, and then we'll be back to talk about hope and meaning.
A theatrical.
Did you get that cocoa, Megan?
Yes.
Megan's putting me
And
in the
I
mood for a
have
candy cane.
the candy cane in it.
And I just realized my microphone was muted. Like actually on the mic itself. I had apparently at some point during that sprint hit the button with the mute button on my microphone. So hopefully everyone had a good break. Brian went and got himself some shoes, well, some flippity floppities, because the floors are very cold. It's the one downside of not having carpets in the house, because with our allergies, we don't have carpet because that's where the dust likes to live. Step in the carpets.
My dream: heated floors.
Yes.
That's living the dream.
But we do not have the heated floors, and the floors are very cold. And usually with his hobbit feet, he doesn't notice, but it is so cold outside that he's just like, I was trying to figure out why my feet were so cold. And then I realized they're on this floor. Like, yeah. And then we had a long conversation.
The floor would do that.
This floor, this is the coldest floor I have. Even in the middle of summer, I have to keep shoes on my feet, or the floor will just take my heat from me. It's magic cooling floor, which, considering it's usually hot here, that is a good thing. But on days like today, it is not. It is definitely not. And yes, I just got back to the seat and noticed that you said this, Stacy, and right when the thunder cracked. Yes, my condolences go out to you and your mother. And yeah, it is one of those things that as we get older, we do see more of ourselves in our parents. I definitely see a lot of myself in my father, especially as our relationship has gotten better over the years, and I've gotten to know him better and go, oh, that's why I'm like that. Oh, it's your fault to shock you. And then he laughs. So a recurring theme that I feel like will probably pop up over and over and over again throughout the time that we do streams on this channel, or even videos on this channel, is hope. Because again, like I said before we went into our break, we really do live in a capitalistic world where they have done the research. The sadder they can make you, the more depressed they can make you, the more melancholy they can make you, the more money they can make off of you. So there is very much an active environment out there that is trying to depress you to get money. That is trying to make you sad to get money. And that makes it hard for us to generate hope. I do find it really funny when Don Lemon got challenged about this on CNN the other day, and he was just like, I don't think that we just do fear and scare stories. And I'm just like, have you seen CNN? Are you familiar with all news networks? Like, not just them. Like, are you familiar with the news networks? That's what they do, is here's the terrible thing that will kill you next.
I am very much an anxiety shopper. I made the mistake of opening my first credit card just before my daughter was born, and then 3.5 months NICU stay. So much stress. It's amazing how much you can rack up on a $5,000 limit.
Oh yeah!
Oh wow!
I didn't do all of that in 3 months, but it was a surprisingly short time.
So, as the kind of creature that I am, let's begin with a definition, because I think I have over the years come to use the word hope in a way different than a lot of people. Hope to me is not something that you wish for. It's not something that you passively sit around going, someday my prince will come, but I'm just going to sit here, look at the animals, and hope that I will, eat a poisoned apple and eventually be rescued by somebody willing to kiss a dead person in a box. Like, I love me some Disney movies, but some of those stories are just okay.
But the last decade has taught me that is not an unreasonable belief.
Yeah. Yeah. But
The
hope,
straights are not okay.
no, they're not. Hope, in the way that I'm using it, is that dream that you have, that desire that motivates you. Whatever that is. That could be a grand hope, like you have with Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, which to me is a speech about hope. One day we will get there. One day I may not make it there with you, right? All of the language is there, but it is giving a guiding hope. Here's what we need to work for. Here's what we need to strive for. Here's what we need to reach for. It can be a small thing like, I hope I can get my book finished and out in a way that people will like. Now, I this isn't a passive thing. I'm not like, I hope people like my book. It's, I hope I can get the book out. I hope that my health stays good and I can do everything that I can to keep my health as good as I can without unforeseen interventions from the body and nature. I can do what I can for my mental health to keep myself as sturdy as I can be, again, barring unforeseen interventions from nature and my body, right? But hope is that thing that should motivate you. It is not a goal. Goals can be reached. I think a lot of people, when they start thinking this way, start saying, well, my goals are the things that I hope for. Goals are things that you try to achieve on the way to what you hope for. They're milestones along the way. Goals can be reached. Dreams should be really big. Hopes should be really big. I still, even though I am 46 years old and living in the rusty buckle of the Bible Belt with no signs that this will ever happen, hope that one day I will have my media empire. I will have my movies and my animes and all of the things. And that I will be sitting back going, wow, I have a bunch of money. Maybe I should hire other people and do more of the creativity things. I still have hope for this. And will I ever achieve it? I don't know. Will it destroy me if I don't achieve it? No. It's that guide star. It's that thing that I wake up when I'm feeling creative that shines in front of me. Why am I doing this? It's because I want these stories to come out. I want people to see these things. I want people to experience these worlds that I'm making. And I have the little goals in between, but the big guide star, that's the hope. It's not the little things. And I don't think we encourage people to have big hopes much these days, because it's more than just, I hope a certain orange-skinned gentleman does not become president again. That's a passive, fear-based response on a lot of our parts. An actual hope would be, I hope that we can have a good president, somebody who's actually helpful and beneficial for the country. Will we ever have one? Probably not. Who knows? But that means being active in primaries, being active in the activism that I am a part of, and trying to get candidates lined up. It's that guide star. It's that thing that motivates you. And when you are motivated by that kind of a hope, it's really hard to be put down. It's really hard to get kicked down, because I know that most of the things I hope for are thoroughly unrealistic. So trying to bring realism into my life to tell me that my hopes and dreams are foolish, I know that already. Thank you. Doesn't do nothing. I'm still going for it, because the foolishness is a big part of it. Having that abandon of, I don't know if I will ever live in a community that is built on the principles of compassion and mercy and kindness, where we actually take care of one another and don't let people freeze to death on the streets when there are so many empty houses that people could be living in. I don't know how realistic that is, and I honestly don't care about how realistic it is. That is a hope of mine, and I will do everything I can to harass the members of the city council and to harass my local delegates, because at least for me, my state senator lives on the other side of my ditch, so I can bother him whenever I want to. And I have been known to shout over the over the ditch at him when there were certain things he should be voting for that he was hanging out at the house instead of like actually working for us. So just a little bit. Did it change anything? Probably not. He's a curmudgeonly old man who tells me I'm going to hell every time he sees me. But I'm doing my part. I'm working to try with the local community to try to find better candidates. Right? Hopes set a course for you, and they give you strength.
So, I saw a short video recently, and I may have forwarded it to you. And I know I forwarded it to Tom, and I know I forwarded it to Maggie. Don't remember if I forwarded it to any of the rest of y'all. It was from an Indigenous advocate who was really talking about that she'd hear people talking about they don't, in this apocalypse, they don't think that anybody should be having kids. They personally don't believe they should personally have kids because why would you want to bring kids into this world kind of thing. And she was really talking about, our apocalypse already happened. But I don't know any Indigenous people ever, at least, and she was talking about at least that I know of in North America, who ever thought growing up or now in adulthood, I'm not going to have kids because the world is terrible or dystopian or the world is ending. Our world has already ended. And all of us believe we should have children and we should raise children. And she was talking about that. And I really thought about it because, like, yes, for Jews, our world has ended so many times. And the things that Jews talk about in our homes when it's just us are, yes, recounting all the times various groups tried to kill us and how all of them failed because we are still here. And if there is one guiding principle, it's live out of spite. Live to spite the haters. Like I knew so many little old ladies and gentlemen who had survived the Holocaust that my Auntie Belle introduced me to when I visited her when I was 13 years old in Detroit, Michigan. And she introduced me to all these people. And I'm like, wow, you are so old. And yet you're like taking care of yourself. You're not in a retirement home or an assisted living home. How is that even possible? I was led to believe that like everybody over 70 needs assistance to live. Now look, in my defense, it was 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, have you seen 70-year-old people from the 90s? Like they're frail. Everybody's like, I can't believe they're still walking. Like, so in my defense, elderly people back then really were treated differently than now.
Very much.
And there were different expectations for quality of health and quality of care. And every Holocaust survivor my Auntie Belle introduced me to, and believe me, she took so much pleasure taking me to every bagelry and Jewish deli all over Detroit. She felt that she needed to make sure I knew what real Jewish food tastes like, not just the dreck my mother cooks. And yes, I know your mother cooks dreck because I remember her when she was young and she couldn't cook back then. So, yeah, and you said you don't have a housekeeper, so nobody's cooking at home but her. And I'm like, I'm cooking.
Please don't.
She's like, then
give me the flashbacks to yesterday about your mother.
Yes. Yes.
You think it's just us who had that opinion?
Yeah. Auntie Belle was like, you need to talk to all of us. She'd introduce me to pretty much strangers that she didn't even know at the delis and the bagel shops. In part because she wanted me to talk to them about what they were eating, but also about their history, their background, that Jews are everywhere and that even when they don't self-identify, they're everywhere. There's no place in the world without Jews. And there's a reason, and she wanted me to figure it out. So she kept like introducing me. And it was like, so she's like, go ask that old lady there. Tell her you're from Mississippi. And ask her, why is she still going so strong, living on her own after all these decades? And so she made me sit down with straight. Oh God, it was so embarrassing. I was 13. I'm in the height, just the beginning of the crest of embarrassment. And I'm supposed to sit down with these strangers, like literally, hello, ma'am, you don't know me. My name is Glory. I'm Jewish. I'm from Mississippi. She's like, oh, my Auntie Belle told me to sit down and ask you some questions. Okay, well, sit. First off, what are you eating? Second, what do you like on that plate? And then third, why are you still alive and going strong? And what my Auntie Belle. So this is what I heard again and again. Screw Hitler. Because I'll get him. Get him. And I was like, why is it all Hitler-centric? He's just one of so many. And they're like, good point. And Antiochus. And all of them. You know? And I'm like, and Auntie Belle's like, what do you think? I was like, spite. Spite keeps old Jews going. She's like, yeah, you're probably right. Probably right. But it's not just that. And I'm like, what is it? She said, so many people want to kill us. And it's probably, we hope one day that will stop. Oh, we pray one day the rest of humankind will get over it and just let us be us and stop wanting us, like, not just not around them, but exterminate. One day we hope. But in the meantime, it doesn't matter what they think. We're going to be us. We're still going to try to be good people. We're going to try to take care of the environment and each other and the future and our future. Because, girl, we're going to do it, and we don't need them to validate us, and we don't even need Hashem to validate us. We're going to do it because it's the right thing. And because also, screw 'em. Like, I get it again. I was like, I've never heard naughty words so much in my life or out of adult mouth. My parents always, like, tried to hide when they were saying naughty words. They spell it out, and I was not a good speller because I'm dyslexic. So that worked pretty well. But, yeah, no, Auntie Belle wasn't going to spell it. She was a kindergarten. She was a retired kindergarten teacher. She ain't spelling it. She did her time at the Detroit inner city kindergarten schools. She ain't spelling it. She's going to say it. But, like, I think that to some degree, I think a lot more people could benefit from this thought process being shared. Even if this is your people's first apocalypse, and if it is, how fortunate you are that your people have made it this far without having been decimated or worse, truly wiped out. How fortunate that this is your people's first apocalypse. But if it is, if this is not your people's second, third, 10th, 20th apocalypse, then here it is. You'll be okay. You've made it this far. And even if you don't make it to your finish line, that is okay. Because there are so many other people in your community that as long as you empower them to keep moving forward, the future will still happen. And that's what's important, is that the future is still going to happen. That the sun will still rise. Not just a ball of gas out in space. Who cares? But the sun will still rise. The future will still happen. Humans will survive and thrive and prevail. And that hopefully we will not ruin a planet in the process. But yes, don't worry. Keep moving forward. And remember, you have a purpose. And that purpose is to make the way a little wider for the folks behind you. For your children and everyone else's children who are really, they come into the world and they don't know what prejudice is or bigotry or hate. They have no idea. They just know hungry and cold. Somebody hold me now. That is all they know. That's your job. Every one of us, that is our job, is to make the path a little wider, a little easier to cross for everyone behind us. Okay. And yeah, I'm sorry to say this, there'll probably be more apocalypses. It's gonna suck. That is what the future holds. But if we get downtrodden, we're like, oh, why should I try? There won't be a future. The sun won't rise. That's what we need to remember. And so what do you need to do so that you still feel empowered to make the path wider and easier for the folks behind you? You probably need to keep falling in love with the world and the things around you. You probably need to find little things for the future that you want to personally achieve so that you have like an incentive to keep moving forward. you probably need to keep looking for allies and new friends, and maybe even occasionally reconnect with old friends you lost contact with, so you kind of remember who you were, so you understand how far you've come, and that you make friends with new people who did not know you when you were more of an asshole. And yes, let's be honest, we all could be jerks, okay? We don't mean to be, but we have you met young people? They'll say things. That was us all too. Okay, well, we were all young once, and we all said things that now we're like,
I admit it. I'm an asshole.
Right? I'm an asshole too. Oh, let me tell you. Oh God, I was such an asshole. My own family couldn't stand me. Thank you, hormones. You have made me a nice person. I am not a nice person on testosterone now. That is what I have learned. I need the hormone therapy and estrogen. She make me kind. She also work on this jaw a lot. She great. Okay. But anyhow,
you make me want to just point out I have a coffee account for anybody who wants to help me also learn the joys that Gloria's talking about.
I cannot recommend enough estrogen. If testosterone makes you an asshole, have you thought about trying E? She great. Also, what a lovely jawline. Don't y'all think? It used to be so lantern. I will find old pictures. But anyway, my point simply being, figure out what you need to do to keep helping build that future for everybody behind you. Because the future needs to happen. We owe it to the folks behind us. Because the people ahead of us helped make the future for us. And yes, they gave us kind of a crappy future. But we can do more. So we will. Because of you. Thank you for coming to my second TED Talk of the day.
But you're so right. We were in one of the other groups I was in the other day. We were talking to somebody who just was flabbergasted when she realized that when we talked about future plans, we weren't thinking about other generations after us. That this wasn't part of it was so ingrained in her the way that she and her community discussed everything, that they were literally doing the whole, how will this affect 2-3 generations after us if we do this thing? That she was like, so that's not just a stereotype. Y'all don't do that for the most part. And no, that's not something that is done nearly at the level that it needs to be. And this is where, when you say the apocalypse will happen, I get really frustrated. I spend a lot of my life and energy in various religious circles with people who don't understand the purpose of apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature is not there to tell you how the world will end. It's to tell you how it will end this time and that time and the time before that and the time after that. There's a reason these texts are vague. They're vague not so that you can predict whatever you want to out of them. You're not supposed to use them for prediction at all. You're supposed to get to the end of the book and see, oh, but look, people survived. Yes, there were plagues, there were pestilences. A third of all life on Earth was wiped out. But look, at the very end, there's still people here. People made it to the end. Yay.
Talk about a true warping of definition. Like, the term apocalypse just meant revealing truths.
Yeah, it just means unveiling.
It didn't mean ending.
Let's be honest. To be perfect, I hate to break it to everybody who, especially if this is your first apocalypse, this is like a baby apocalypse, y'all. This is I'm sorry, I don't mean to make anybody's losses trivialized, because that's not my intent. But as far as even just historically speaking apocalypses go, this is nothing.
Just apocalypses in
the
last
sucks.
100
It sucks
years.
so much. But this isn't even that bad.
Kept it under 1 million.
I mean, the Black Plague in just Europe alone wiped out 30 to 50% of the human population in Europe. But let me tell you about the plague that wiped out all of North America, which was of equal, if not more, population, 20, 30 years before, Pilgrims and Roanoke and all of that. Before that, when you talk about apocalypse, just North America, we are talking of 90% of an equal or larger population than what Europe had were wiped out. And the remains don't exist because back then there were also vultures and buzzards that ate bones.
Yep.
So all of the bodies, remnants, disappeared because everybody got a sky barrel back then. And so, like, when we talk, apocalypses have already happened. We are very fortunate. This is like a little baby apocalypse. It's terrible. Oh, it's absolutely horrible. It's scary. You have no idea. We're very fortunate. This is more like a wake-up apocalypse than now we're just going to scrub it and try again and see what we do, and hopefully, better genetic diversity next time.
And there is actually a small chance we will oopsie doodle by accident ourselves out of the climate apocalypse that we're talking about. When they ran the numbers, one of the things that they found is, I'm not going to go into all of the math, but they thought if nobody did anything, if no governments didn't take action, if there wasn't strict clampdowns, like full-on governmental action against climate change, by the end of the century, we would hit 5 degrees of warming. Mm-hmm. And that is truly apocalyptic.
It's terrible.
That is potentially like dinosaur level extinction event. Mm-hmm. And there hasn't been... no matter what you hear, like the Kyoto Protocol did nothing. The Paris Accords have done nothing. Nobody's actually doing any of the things that they're saying. They're talking to each other and they're just making really pretty promises and not doing anything. But this miraculous thing happened on the back end where people actually started making a difference. They started buying electric cars. They started buying more energy efficient appliances because it's cheaper to run them. They started doing things on the back end that have actually started cutting emissions. We're now no longer online to go to the 5 degree change if nobody does anything. We're in line to go to 3 degrees. Now, 3 degrees is still not good. It'd be really nice if we don't hit 3 degrees. That's still going to be really, really hard and nightmarish for a lot of people.
It's still, the tropics are a dead zone.
Yeah. It's
Which
better
is a real
than
problem.
5. Yeah, it's better than
even
5.
2.5, even like 2.5 would be an improvement over 3. Real definitive benefit.
But we accidentally oopsie doodled ourselves into a better future. And who knows? We just had the first successful test of a fusion reactor.
Well, and part of that goes back to hope. There was hope. Back at the beginning, solar power was just hope. It was not feasible. They could barely capture a spectrum, and it was only parts of that, which meant that the cap on the efficiency percentages, you're talking like in the teens if you're lucky.
Those for the premium solar cells.
Those are the really expensive ones. You could get into the teens if you're lucky. And so the idea of solar working was ridiculous at the beginning, but there was hope. And
well, it's what a lot of people, millions of people around the planet said, I cannot fix the world, but I can do this thing.
Yeah.
Whether it was invest in solar panels and what actually really helped was a lot of young people got into college and went, you know what? I kind of wonder if one person could add a little something to the research and the testing of various climate empowering and saving options. Let me go into that area of study and research. A lot of young people over about 30 years went into various fields going, I wonder if I could actually help contribute something. And then it turns out they freaking did, which is mind-blowing. And none of them did as organizing. There weren't any campaigns like, hey, you know what? We need you in science to save the world. Have you thought about seawater? No, none of that. It was just a lot of young people back then. And even I'm sure still now went, you know what? I wonder if maybe if I'm in there, I could kind of help or at least, do the work. And it turns out, yes, you can. It's and made these amazing breakthroughs in little groups of 1 or 3 or 5 people, just all like adding it and putting it out there for everyone else to then add on to. Like, as Tom says a lot, we stand on the shoulders of giants. There's certain truth in there. So remember, you don't need to be amazing. You just need to be a part to help share in that. Because that is, again, where, as humans, our strength is together, not individually. This lone wolf stuff is BS.
Yeah, what makes us human is the fact that we can cooperate and we can share and expand on each other's knowledge.
Yep.
That is why we are where we are.
And that's why in the middle of Glory's story, if you notice, I changed the banner from the power of hope to the power of meaning, because these two are so interconnected to me. Because I think one of the biggest problems that we have with both of these terms is we have allowed powerful moneyed interest to be like, I will give you the thing to be hopeful for. I will bestow meaning upon you. We have bent the knee and allowed these things to happen. Whereas both hope is something that comes from the inside out. It's something that, no, I need this. I want this. This is going to be my guide star that I'm going to follow. And the same is true with meaning. Meaning is not something that gets handed down to us from on high. Meaning is something that we develop together. Meaning is an emergent process. It is something that we share a little bit of knowledge here and a little bit of knowledge there. And it all starts coming together of just, yeah, should we live out of spite? If you're trying to spite Hitler, do it. I can think of no better way to live your life than wanting to spite that man and everything that he stood for. That's a great motivation to have. But this is something that develops out of everyone's experiences coming together. And no, this is how I'm going to get through this. This is how I'm going to get there in the end. And the more we look for meaning as something that is bestowed upon us, something that is handed down, this, again, like we started at the very beginning, this top-down model of there's going to be the wise person that's going to come and save us. Like, can we just look at Twitter for just a moment? Like, Elon is not going to save you. Like, he is not the wise man on the hill. He doesn't have all the good ideas. But it so exemplifies the problem that I've been talking about and that we've been kind of dancing around here. This idea that there are those who have the power, those who have the knowledge, those who have discovered the secret of life. And they are going to no. The secret of life is butter and really good bread. The secret of life is having people that are there for you when you need them. That's the real secret of life. And it's not commonly said because it's hard to monetize. No matter how much Mark Zuckerberg wants to monetize our friendships. It's a hard thing to actually make money off of.
The secret of life is kitty snuggles.
It is. It really is. Like, and our relationship, both to the animate and inanimate world, our relationship with our pets, with the various creatures that live, like the thing that I can't wait for later tonight, because it happens the day after snow every year, is I'm probably gonna be hanging out in my kitchen off and on tonight because deer will congregate in our backyard. I don't know why. It's not like we have grass back there or anything. It's just apparently they have marked our backyard as the safe place to go after the snow. There will be deer.
This is where we check who's made it.
Yeah. This is the rally point that they have set. Okay, everything went weird. Everybody meet up back at Charlie's house. It'll be fine. And they're just going to show up. They're just going to be back there. And it's one of those things that gives me hope every time. My anxiety is going crazy. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get through this, that, and the other thing. And there are the deer outside in this weather. And they're just like, hey. They're not like rooting around trying to find something to eat. They're just meeting up back there. And then once a sufficient number that I don't know what that number is, somehow they have decided amongst themselves that once this many of us are here, well, let's go out to the woods.
Quorum.
Yeah.
All the locals showed up. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody I recognize, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And I see this happen almost every time we have a major weather event, whatever it is. Storms go through, there's thunder, lightning, and all of that. The deer will show up in the backyard. It's the way things are. And it reminds me every time I see it, this is the heart of community. Like the deer know it. We're here. We made it. Did you make it? Who else here? Has anybody seen Bob? Where's Bob? Like just you get together, you check in with one another, and then you go out as a group together. You find that meaning together. And more than anything, I feel like we need both hope and this sense of emergent meaning right now, because everything is trying to beat it down. I brought up Elon Musk because there was a really good article that I shared the other day. I think I actually shared it on Twitter. That was basically asking the question of, is everything that Elon is doing on and with Twitter there simply to erode faith in truth? And while they get to the same place I'm at the end of it, I don't think it's that well planned out. I don't think that it's that well planned out. But will the end effect be that people lose their faith in things? And yeah, that's going to be the effect for a lot of people. We had a mild earthquake the other day. My first instinct was to go to Twitter and find out, was that an earthquake? Is everybody okay? Where was it? Right? Because that's the place that we went. That's the place that we decided to go to. And those are the systems that we need to have backups for. You know, we talk a lot over on the AuthorTube side of things about don't forget to back up your work, right? Don't feed the gremlins. You have to back up your work. We have not been doing this backup for society. We've not been doing this backup for how do we communicate. If the landlord decides to foreclose on the property that Twitter is at, because they are not paying their bills, y'all. I would love to be rich and be like, I'm just not paying rent. It's fine. That would be great. Like, can you imagine? So good. What if the landlord just decides to shut them down? What if their internet service provider decides to just shut them down? They're not paying their ISP fees either, right?
They're not updating their servers. It. That's going to catch up.
It's so important for us to have places that we have for those fallbacks. Where are we going to go? Do you know the people that you're really close to on those networks somewhere else? Like, I learned this lesson early on because I was one of those chat kids that remember when various chat clients got shut down because people didn't want it to do them anymore. And that's really a big question, right? Like, how do I know these people in other places? Hello.
How about, I mean, if we're going to talk old school, let's talk about before centralized friends lists.
Yep.
So, like, if you were on ICQ, your friends list was on your computer.
Yep.
And if for whatever reason you lost access to that account, your friends list and everything's gone, and there's no way to recover it.
Yep. And nobody had usernames. They were really obnoxious numbers, like long strings.
I literally found an old notebook from when I was a teenager and in my early 20s that, like, an ICQ list of all these people who I genuinely liked and their user numbers, so that if something happened to my computer, which things did, I had a way of reconnecting with them once I got ICQ on a new computer and downloaded and all of that. Because there was no other way to retain it. And they understood that I may be on the same username, or a different one, depending on the reason that, I was trying to reconnect.
And so this is something really important for us to be thinking about in all of these things. We have a real big problem as a species in believing that whatever the current situation is, it's permanent. We really do. Like, if things are going well, it will always be well. Nothing bad will ever happen. If things are bad, things are terrible and they will never be good again. Like we have this wonderful ability to project whatever the current state of things is off into eternity. Like this is, and unfortunately, we often project it backwards as well. Like, no, this is the way it has always been. Mm-hmm. Things have never been good, or things have never been bad. I've heard that argument from some very fortunate people that have lived like golden lives that have not experienced much tragedy, or if they did, they were so narcissistic they didn't feel anything from it. And like, it's never been bad. And I'm just like, how much inherited wealth do you have? And then they told me, and I was like, oh, okay. Let me explain. Let me explain this to you. Because they lived in this little bubble, but we project whatever our current state is backwards and forwards. And we have to look for this tendency that we have as a species and realize whatever is now will change. So know where your friends are, know where you want to connect with them, find them on Tumblr, find them on, dear God, please not Mastodon, but wherever you want to reconnect with them, set up a Discord server, have multiple places of contact, because meaning is something that we derive together in groups. And when you lose a member of the group, and one of my friend groups, we're still struggling with this. A friend of ours passed at the very beginning of the pandemic. And oddly enough, even though they weren't the one that put us all in touch with each other, we stopped talking to each other after that. Like, we don't know, like, they were apparently much more of a linchpin to our friend group than we knew that they were. But things will never be the same. How do we make them better? How do we make them good again? How do we always strive for something that we want? Because, how do I say this? All my years in activism have taught me I am tired of fighting against things. Fighting against things is tiresome. It is burdensome. It is one of the most soul-destroying things that you can do. And sometimes you have to fight against things, right? Like, there are just some things that you have to mobilize against. But it's much more empowering if you can be for something. Like when the queer rights movement started moving for rights instead of fighting discrimination. Like, yeah, we need to fight the discrimination and all that stuff too. But that shift in focus makes it a lot less soul-crushing to constantly be thinking about how horribly have people been treated today, instead of going, how can we get something to move us a little bit closer to where we want to be? How can we get just a little bit closer towards the end goal? And I know a lot of people who had not felt this sting are feeling it now with the current Supreme Court and seeing, oh, rights are magical things that we just say to one another, and a bunch of rich white men can just be like, wee. I'm sorry, there was a woman there. Amy, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing? Anyway.
I was just thinking of non-white men who apparently don't want to admit they want a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Who are like, bring it. I want an excuse to get out of this marriage.
Find the things that you are for and not the things that you are against. That's a much healthier way to structure your life and your day, and it doesn't wear you down as quickly as when you're always fighting against people. It's why I don't talk a lot about Matt Walsh as much as I want to.
That is the deep, dark secret of life there. It's all of life intrinsically is meaningless. And so it's easy to fall into that trap and into that pit. But it's, even though it is meaningless, it is the meaning that you attribute.
Are you saying life is like a cake? It's what you make of it?
Life is but a dream.
Just the meaning you give it. it starts with the spark, the beginning point, the big bang of hope. Then you give meaning to that hope, and it grows through creativity and life. L'chaim.
I mean,
One of the most defiant days I've ever seen in my life was after, and the neighborhood that we lived in right after 9/11, everyone was just out in the streets chanting L'chaim. And I was like, okay, I don't understand. Can you just back up a minute? Why are we doing this in particular? And it's like, because all we have right now is life. We're going to survive this. It's fine. L'chaim. Like, okay, let's do this then.
Let's live.
And to life.
I mean, I was thinking of a line I hear on occasion, which is always entertaining to me. Of, you know that word's made up, right? And the correct response is always, all words are made up.
Yeah.
Right.
No word exists on its own. We made them all up. You know that, right?
Yep.
And the same is for meaning. Existence is neutral. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
There is no meaning or purpose when an asteroid hits an asteroid.
No inherent meaning.
But you have to be so you have to be conscious to give something meaning.
And you have to be conscious, because if you don't, the gremlins in your brain will do it for you.
Yeah. And so it's okay if you need to give something meaning.
Yeah.
Including, including when you make those little stupid, what do you call them? When you barter with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
If this happens, then I will go do this. As much as I'm not up for it, I will go. That's fine, because life ain't always easy to handle. We are all exhausted. We are all individuals, and we rarely feel empowered. So you have to find ways to empower yourself, and that is what meaning does.
Yep.
Meaning empowers you, which is why we all need it.
Speaking of meaning empowering you, I feel like I have mutated into super hippie form throughout the course of
you're adorable. My little bohemian aunt.
Like my full bohemian side is starting to show. I will be Miss Madrigal at some point in my life. It will happen. And I feel like I have to always backtrack on that now. I'm talking about the one from the really gay book series, not the one from the really Disney movie series. Because there's a new Madrigal that everybody thinks of when I say that now.
Yep.
I'm talking about the Tales of the City, Ms. Madrigal, my first hero. I didn't understand at the time exactly why. Just one of those things, like eerie foreshadowing for the future.
But it's the same reason why humans create stories. Our lives are stories in our own head. We literally have a section of our brain devoted to creating a personal story of our existence. So don't forget to give that existence meaning and purpose. And for that, you need a hope, which is, at least in my view, has always been, it is a belief in the better. And for you, whatever your perspective of better is.
Yep.
And so you need to always have that, so you have something to work towards. But yes, you have to give yourself meaning. And that is what they've always found. I keep seeing studies popping up of, like, if you ever want to know what actually makes somebody a candidate to stop wanting to exist, they don't have meaning and purpose anymore. You have to get them, as soon as possible, a new meaning and purpose to exist.
Also, that they thought they would feel better now. They thought they would feel happy. They achieved the things that everybody told them they needed to. And they feel empty inside. And that also leads people to do drastic things for a temporary feeling.
It's one of the things that often makes people think that I'm a downer. because we attach so much meaning to things that aren't going to give us the meaning that we want to. And so, yes, it feels very good when you finish your first book, when that first book is published. All these things feel good. They will not complete you. It's like meeting somebody and starting a relationship. They will not complete you. If you feel like you have pieces missing, you have to find the silly putty to fill that in on your own. That book isn't going to do it. That drug is not going to do it. That relationship is not going to do it. And it's the answer no one ever wants to hear.
Don't be Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, please.
Every single time I submit an article, even like on my newsletter, after I set it for when to publish, all that, and there's nothing more for me to do, I feel empty inside. Every time. It's always like, oh, now what? Because like I had purpose right before that. Oh, I was getting this produced. I was getting everything set. It's all now done. I am no longer needed. The machines are going to do it on the time and the thing. I am not needed. And now it's like, oh, I guess I'll go make dinner and go to bed. There's no parade that is suddenly thrown for me in my house. Even when I used to send my articles to editors, like, here, I'm done with it. It's yours now. Best of luck. Afterwards, it's like, well, somebody hug me. I feel empty inside.
As I've mentioned before on several different streams, I've been struggling with my own innate sense of feeling useless and feeling like I've always been the biggest dum-dum that has ever dum-dummed in the history of dum-dummery, which is my own personal mental health crisis that I have a couple times a decade. And so what I decided to do today was to just be completely navel-gazy and it's always that thing of like, is this a vanity? Am I doing a narcissism? But it's helping me, so I don't care. I decided to go in to my archive over on the Substack and do voiceovers for old posts that I like. So I've literally been reading through stuff that I had written in the past and doing the voiceovers for them. I'm adding them now. I set it up. There's a secret podcast on Creation's Paths you can subscribe to that all of them have them on there because I'm adding them all to the list when I do it. But the thing that I have discovered is, past me wasn't a complete idiot. Past me wasn't as dumb as I thought I was. Past me actually had some halfway decent ideas. And while some people don't have that kind of esteem issue, right? Some people don't have that kind of a problem. Being able to look back on this long history, like one thing that made me laugh is I finished doing the audio on one of these and I saw where it says the date. Once it gets past a certain date, it tells you how long ago it was written instead of the date on Substack. And I finished the article and I put the voiceover on and I clicked save and it said this article was published 15 years ago. And I just went, wow, I've been on the internet for a very long time. But it made me smile because it reminded me of who I used to be, and that all of my memories of past me, while tainted with things that I wish I had not been, there was a part of me that I'm kind of glad that I was. I can see me forming in these, and it's been a really fun journey. And so whatever you need to do, it's kind of the moral of my story there, whatever you need to do to find your meaning, reconnect with yourself, to remind you of who you are, do it. Because as somebody who, to use Tom's metaphor there, wins the nomination periodically and does not want the nomination, it's important to have ways to remind yourself, I'm not entirely worthless. I'm not entirely useless. There's good parts here too. And anytime that you don't have to hear it from someone else, this is the secret that I found for my own mental health. When you don't have to find it from somebody else telling you, hey, I liked this thing of yours. When you are reading something that you did and you go, I wrote this? I kind of like that. That's a huge boost to the ego. Because I never expect to like anything that I have done, especially something 15 years old. But so, like I was saying, check that out if you're interested. Secret podcast over on creationspaths.com. They're really short because they're just the audio for the articles for like 4 minutes each. Next week, we're going to be getting together and having a very interesting time. We're going to be talking about how to bring a blessing with you into the new year. And by that, I'm very specific. I do not believe in this horrible thing of setting a list of these are the 10 things that I shall do next year. These are the 10 things that I shall not do. I'm not a big commandments kind of a person. I'm because I know what's going to happen. There's going to be a serpent in that garden that's going to be like, hey, baby, you want an apple? I'm going to be like, apples are delicious. And I'm going to run away as fast as possible. Like, don't, these don't work for me. Resolutions do not work for me. But the one thing that I have found in my life that does work is when I can set, like we talked about today, hopes, set blessings. I want to bring this good thing into my life or this good thing into somebody else's life and have a target out there to reach towards. Telling myself I'm going to lose weight means I'm having cake for dinner. I know myself. That's what that means.
So good, though.
Telling myself I'm going to exercise more means I'm going to find a way to efficiently throw my back out so that I am bedridden for a month.
See, if you offered me cake if I go for a walk, I mean, it may not be a long walk, but I'll go do it.
Okay.
With labor.
There are so many things I wanted to go into that, but we will talk about that later. Such as, like, no, if you want to lose weight, the first thing you do is your breakfast becomes your treats.
Cake!
Cake in the morning is actually part of real weight loss. You have to have the things you want most first.
Cookies! Real good cookies, not crap cookies. Not sad cookies. Not those little butter cookies you put on your fingers as a child and you nibble, try to make it last longer because they kept depriving you of cookies.
Because they've done a lot of research. What they've really found is you want to lose weight, do not fight against losing weight. Treat yourself first. Go have your first meal needs to be the stuff you love.
You have to
Don't hold off on if I do well today, first. Then at the end I can have some dessert at the very end. Don't do that. That is the worst thing possible for you because it just leads to further problems making decisions and making poor choices. Get them first. You will be happier.
That's kind of a metaphor for life as well. In order to keep your hope and meaning, do the things you love first. So that you got the part that is most important to you done, which is the enjoyment, the hedonistic maybe, sure. But like whatever it is you love, whether it's cake or it's Disney or it's like, going to your little stable harem of people that you keep in another apartment complex, whatever, good times. Whatever it is, go ahead and get that out of the way and then go be, a responsible person.
You want to be more physically active? First thing you do, if you have any sense of rhythm, is go find something to beat against something else, whether that's a drum, 2 sticks, or 2 spoons. I know where you're from. And tap out some rhythms. Have fun moving. And then if you're feeling up for it, dance in your seat. If that makes if you feel safer and more free to dance in your seat. Whatever,
I think
don't be like, it doesn't count unless I'm sweating and I don't like this. Make sure you like it and then you will do it.
Yeah,
and you will enjoy it and do it more.
We need to find a better way to raise children because like all of this, you get to have your dessert after you eat dinner. The reason behind it is a valid reason of children have small stomachs. So you're trying to get, like necessary fiber and protein in their diet, so that they don't collapse. Like you're trying to get good food into them. And because all they want to eat is like simple carbs and fats. Like that's all they want. But like I think we ultimately as a species need to find a better way to raise children where you don't make them wait to have a good time. It's we get to have the good time first, but then we really got to do the things that whatever we got to do, whether it's scrub the toilet or eat, some healthy proteins. whatever, we still got to do it and figure out a better way to teach children to do that, so they don't put off the good times and never actually have the good times.
Oh, that's the best way to do it, though. That is the best way to do it. Yeah, I hate to skip everybody to the end of the book, but heaven, hell, purgatory, and limbo are here. They're right here. Like, do you want to know what hell looks like? Look at what's going on in Eritrea right now. Look at what's going on in Ukraine right now. You want to see what hell
What's
looks
going on
like?
in Iran?
Or
What's going on in
Afghanistan.
Iran or Afghanistan? Heaven, hell, purgatory, limbo, they're all right here. Right? Don't keep putting it off. Have as much heaven now as you can get your fill. Get your fill. As we said earlier, the apocalypses are coming. And
No, thank you, Maggie. We already have some.
We good. You keep it.
I got it.
I
It's here.
Annie, I'm
Got it.
good. Thanks.
Already
I got the house coat on. I've got the gloves on. I've got the head thing on. I've got a blanket over my legs.
Yeah, I pulled out Grandma's blanket.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, we are just about to head off. So remember, next week we will be here discussing how to bring blessing into the new year and kind of what kind of blessings we want. We're going to just spend probably 3 hours whispering of a dream of what could be better next year. What is inner control and what, I don't care what god, demon, or whatever else gets on our side to make it happen. Like, we're going to be doing the ultimate wish list. What do we want for the new year?
Sales.
And hopefully plotting out maybe some paths on how to get there. Does anybody have anything that they would like to say before we run off for the evening?
Everyone on screen here is awesome.
And they all have
Um,
a Substack. Subscribe to their Substacks. And then subscribe
And
to
I will
everybody
make
else's Substack.
And I'll make an odd pitch, but also if you like kind of what we're talking about here and you like the sort of advice stuff, also Gloria and I on Mondays on Gloria Writes the Blues, especially our awkward sibling hours, are about similar life advice and how to just have better lives. So you can also check us out on Mondays on YouTube. And, what is it? 4 p.m. Eastern?
Yep, 4
Yeah.
p.m. Eastern. Every Monday for over 2 years now.
And
We get
trust me, go into
gathered
the back
together.
catalog. You will learn a lot about yourself. I learned a lot.
I'm
Not happy about all of it, but I learned a lot.
not going to make it this Monday because we've got Christmas part 5 by that point, I think.
Yeah, we're going to talk about physical touch as a love language. That's what we're talking this Monday, right after Christmas. And how, even if you're not into touch, how you can help those who that is their primary or secondary love language satisfy those needs for touch while still, not being grossed out yourself. Come up with a lot of options.
All righty, y'all. Thank you all so much for being here. May blessings and light be on you always and all the paths that you must go. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.